inside and control your mind. Let me see what you see deep inside. Souls left in limbo. You're just another zero. Play with your mind, tour with your thoughts. I've got no time for you to try and cross me. Can't you see? This is my reality. Your fate is within my grasp. There is no negotiation. Now gaze into my program and get caught in my manipulation. You think this is a dream or a nightmare you can't shake, but things are not as they seem. These hallucinations are not fake. Come over here and I'll show you all of my very best friends. This is my domain. I'm the hunter and you're my prey. In this game you play, you all will end the same. Your fate is within my grasp. There is no negotiation. Now gaze into my program and get caught in my manipulation. You're trapped here to decay. Don't stress.
Hello. Who do we got here? It's just Zap. Hey man, how you doing? Welcome to stream. Hope you had a great week. Had to delay the whole streaming reaction thing by a day because I got busy yesterday, which is unfortunate. And then I started having slight technical issues, but I got everything sorted out. But here we are, just vibing here in the stream. Hope you're having a great day. Like I said last week, we are doing a FNaF lore reaction. I got coffee here. Shouldn't be drinking it, but I needed a drink. I needed a little bit of a drink. I needed to get some of them liquid. I needed to stay hydrated. Coffee's not the best source of hydration, but let's just say it's hydration nonetheless. But because I've had a great week. Hope everyone here has, is enjoying their weekend. If you're still on summer vacation, you enjoy that while you can, because August is rolling up. Yo, Brandon King, my friend. Hello, welcome to stream. How you doing, man? How you doing? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing great. I don't know if you were here last stream, but we're reacting. We're doing some FNaF 3 reactions. Or not FNaF 3, just FNaF as a whole. Just FNaF lore reactions as a whole. So, I don't know what prompted the stream. I just asked at some point, hey, do y'all want me to react to the FNaF lore? And, I mean, people said yes, and here we are. But before we start, announcements. As you all know, I'm doing good. How am I doing? I'm doing fine. As per usual. Just hanging on there, But, where was I? Oh, yes. Announcements. As you all know, those that were here, I'm going to be streaming on the daily, Monday through Thursday. I do work on Friday. Monday is going to be a Black Ops 6 zombie stream. Tuesday is going to be Metal Gear Rising DLC 1 stream. And then I still have yet to decide for Wednesday or Thursday, but I will figure that out as we go. FNaF 3 will not be on the lineup. It will most likely be Sparking Zero, and honestly, I wouldn't know what my fourth game would be. Maybe Marvel Rivals. I haven't streamed Marvel Rivals in a bit, but I'll look into it. But for sure, tomorrow's stream is going to be a long Call of Duty stream. So if you're into that stuff, feel free to stop by tomorrow. But hope you guys got your snacks. Hope you guys got everything going, because we're in for a doozy. We're in to discuss today. So, what up? Rival stream Wednesday or Thursday? I'll keep you posted. I don't know when I'd have the dates for it, but there will definitely be a Rival stream, because I haven't streamed Rivals in a bit. So I need to give Rivals a little bit of limelight, I need to give it a little bit of a spotlight. I should have said, but you get what I'm saying. But let's get started. Let's get started on the reaction. Now you see, I got coffee, which I'm prepped to heat up more if need be, and I got some Oreos over the week. I ate a few of them, but As you can see, I am actually watching it on my Xbox. I couldn't figure out how to hook up my TV to my computer. Sick, might hop on then. Hey, let's go. Yeah, but you can see the video that we are reacting to is down below. I do have the original because this is a video compiling all, because it's like a bunch of parts, but it's a video compiling all of the parts into one singular video. But the link to the original channel is still in the description, and the link to the video featured is actually up in the description as well. So if you're interested in watching it, because I haven't watched this one, this is a brand new watch for me. I've watched the FNaF lore from other mediums or other videos, but for sure, if you're interested in this one or watching it on your own time or supporting the creators, the link to this video and the link to the Game Theorist's channel is in the description. So please show them some love, show them support. Of course, they are incredible, especially the Game Theorist. The other guy and that guy's awesome for compiling these videos into one. But without further ado, let's actually get this music muted. You gotta get some snacks. Well, there's not much to talk about. We'll probably get started here. So let's actually get started, and then I think everyone else is gonna trickle in. I just started a little late because of technical issues, but here we go.
Today we end the torment. 19 books, 11 games, 8 whole years, all leading to this moment.
So, okay, I don't know if this, because this is 2 years ago. Okay, so 2 years ago this was made. So, if we're looking at this video from a perspective, it says 8. Are we looking? Okay, so it's including the books and all the games. So this is, I'm assuming this stops at Security Breach Ruin. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember. 2 years ago. Pretty sure that's when we got Ruin. Around that time is when we got Ruin. I want to assume. So, we're stopping at Security Breach, it seems. Okay, that's fine by me.
The FNaF timeline is finally complete. The pieces are in place for us. Now all we have to do is put this story of tragedy, jealousy, and loss back together.
Okay, interesting.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, the show that feels like a kid revealing the class
And it's
project
Matt Pat.
he's
Hey,
been
man.
working on all year. Except here, it's the class project that I've been working on for the past decade of my life. This one is big, my friends, and I gotta admit, kind of nervous. I haven't attempted a timeline video on this franchise since 2018. Back in the days when Mike was the crying child, Afton coming back was actually a surprise, and Fazgoo wasn't a phrase I'd ever thought.
Y'all remember Fazgoo? I don't. I honestly don't. It's wild though. A decade in this lore. Granted, I've dabbled in it, but not as much as this guy. And now, the thing about it is, it's also weird how the games are set, like in like the order of the games specifically, how they're set. So, gotta love Game Theory. Oh yeah, I didn't watch too much of their videos, admittedly. But I know they're well regarded in the community. No, we love Game Theory here. Yep.
I'd have to utter. But since the last time I did something like this, we've had 3 more massive games, the death and revival of the FNaF movie, and more robot kids than you can shake a staff bot at. It is exhausting trying to keep track of this whole franchise,
I'd imagine
which
so.
honestly is why I'm here today. The lore at this point is
What we're all here
complicated.
for.
It is full of speculation and theory, so to hopefully make it a little easier for everyone and to give us all a baseline to talk about this franchise moving forward into the future, it's time to reveal my current working FNaF timeline. But just before I do, I just want to explain a couple of things.
Now that's the important part. His timeline, okay? Because this is where the disagreement starts, okay? Now, obviously, everyone's here is free to disagree with my takes because there's some takes in some other channels that I agree with, and some takes here that I agree with, yada yada. So we'd have to look a little
this timeline
deeper.
is massive. Seriously, it is huge. This thing towers over any video project we have ever done on the channel. But when you look at the totality of this franchise, the story of FNaF really boils down to the story of one man, William Afton. His successes, his failures, his rise to becoming co-owner of one of the most successful restaurant franchises in the world, and his eventual fall to the monsters he helped to create, only to then be reborn in a new digital form later. So
Okay. This is where I start talking out of my ass, okay? This is where the discussion starts, okay? That is not William Afton, okay? A lot of people like to... I like to think Glitch Trap is really stupid and really goofy. I don't know how much people agree with that. But That right there is not William Afton. That is a figment. It was a part of him that was digitized. It's stupid. Yay, Eagly! We basically just started and we're barely doing the first point of discussion, which is Glitch Trap. But hello, welcome. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope you got your snacks and stuff, because we are here to react and discuss, baby. And I'm excited for this. Glitch Trap is silly and goofy. Yeah, he's so silly and goofy. He's a little quirky. He's a little quirky. I don't like the concept of Glitch Trap at all. Okay, I'm gonna put that out there. I don't like the concept of Glitch Trap at all, because I think it's really stupid that, well, I'm guessing in a way it makes sense within the universe of FNaF that Remnant essentially allowed Afton to digitize himself, because I'm assuming if I remember correctly, they recovered the little chip thingy from Springtrap. You have the soda. I have coffee. I should have gotten the soda before. If we do take a break, I may actually run over to get soda. Drive to the store to get some soda, but coffee is my go-to for now, because coffee and cookies, they go the best. Okay. The animatronics do get a bit quirky at night, but we gotta love that one. It's just Freddy twerking. But I honestly just think that Afton himself is here's the thing. He's a very integral part of the lore in his own saga, which I like to consider from whenever the original timeline starts, which assumingly is FNaF 4, all the way to FNaF Pizza Sim. That's when I assume the timeline starts. Boo, you got dark chocolate? Ooh. I don't like dark chocolate a whole lot. It's really strong. I will eat it. It's not like white chocolate where I will refuse to eat it. I will eat it, but you know. But where was I? But oh yeah. Since fucking Pizza Sim should have been the end of Afton. We should have gotten a new villain. And I don't know, like, I'm guessing it's difficult to replace someone that affected the lore this much like Afton. It's not easy. But I feel like I begin audio prompt in 3, 2, 1. Hey Ray, what's up, man? Welcome to stream. But replacing someone with like Afton, who essentially jump-started the lore, is difficult. And here's my take, okay? Here's my take. Because they're still vengeful. I should move this a little bit more, okay? Yeah, there you go. Because they're still vengeful, I feel like Cassidy, the spirit of Cassidy, unable to rest, should have been the main villain going forward. Or, here's another one, and probably another one that's a little less, like, weird, I guess. But the guy who made the Mimic and the Mimic himself, which from what I'm assuming, the Mimic is trying to take center stage nowadays, now that Afton's gone, the Mimic should honestly be the main antagonist of this franchise going on forward. Nothing Afton related, no. Sure, you could say the Mimic has some sort of ties to Afton, but I feel like the Mimic itself, with the way it learns and the way it's in a sense sentient, should be what propels this lore further. And I hope it doesn't go on for too long. Hold on, let's hear him out. Hey, you see, I like that. So either A, which is the one they're not going with, make Cassidy the most vengeful spirit out of the bunch, the main antagonist, and basically have FNaF just be, the rest of FNaF just essentially be whoever is leading the story to free Cassidy. You know, that should be it. Or have the Mimic be the main antagonist and have its self-sentience essentially drive it into a sort of, well, a murderous spree, as I'm assuming we've been seeing. I haven't seen much on Secrets of the Mimic, so I don't really know what I'm talking about when it comes to the Mimic. Like, I'm a little in the dark about it, because I want to experience the game firsthand come October. By the way, Secrets of the Mimic in October. Guys, get ready for that. But, with that being said, well, without that yap session out of the way,
Sit back,
let's keep
grab
going.
some popcorn or your pitchforks if you're the type to get upset when I say something controversial, and make sure that you subscribe, since this is going to be a video that you're going to want to come back
subscribe to both of them.
in order to fully
Back,
dissect.
had to get the
Without
Oreos.
any
Hey,
more
welcome back,
waiting,
Eagly.
I present to you the story of a loving, obsessive father who slowly descended into madness.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to disagree with this part immediately, okay? This is the part where I'm going to have to tell you he's flat out wrong. It is stated on multiple occasions that William Afton was always an abusive piece of shit father. He was always an asshole. We don't like the guy, so
but along the way discovered the secret to eternal life. Our story begins not in the 1980s, or even in the 1970s, but all the way back in the 1930s. It was the throes of the Great Depression, and people were in desperate need of cheap entertainment, especially in Utah, one of the states hit hardest.
Of course.
Highest unemployment in the nation and full of transients.
Bringing some
People
real life
looking
into
for
it, I like
work in
that.
Salt Lake, finding none, and ultimately moving on to find their fortunes out in California. People
William,
were
yeah, he
tired,
hates his
they
kids.
were hungry, but as they traveled, there was
I remember that
one
image.
thing that could lift their spirits. A simple roadside attraction called Fredbear's Singing Show.
Oh, I've
Ads
seen
were
this.
plastered
So this was
all
his?
over town, featuring an animated bear drawn in the popular pie-eyed cartoon style for characters at the time. He
Welcome
resembled
back, Doc.
cartoons like Mickey Mouse, Felix the Cat, Betty Boop. It immediately said that this, Fredbear's, was a place where you could bring the family. And the price, honestly, couldn't be beat. For 50 cents, you could get food and entertainment as you watched the local trained real-life dancing bear perform on stage. Normally, you only got to see dancing bears at large traveling circuses like Barnum and Bailey, where the tickets would go for about $1. That's $1 without food. But this was a smaller show.
But remember when everything was so much cheaper? $1 for a ticket without food? Shit, shit.
The type from the
But that's
Von
pretty cool.
Brothers or the Robbins brothers.
That's
where
pretty
tickets
cool.
would sell for just a mere 50 cents. Watching that bear do tricks on stage brought a glimmer of joy at a time when so
So, okay, let me guess where this is going. It's gonna rain here? Ah, shit. We need the rain. It's hot as fuck. I hope it doesn't, because I need to cut my lawn. I need to cut my lawn after stream's over. But, okay, so here's where I'm going. So, if it's in the 1930s, Afton is just a wee little lad, I'm assuming, okay? This is what we're gonna get here, okay? This is what I think we're gonna get here. He's a wee little lad. He's gonna see, you miss having milkshake for a nickel. Eagle, you weren't... Okay, alright, you. But anyways, little Afton was so entranced by this little thing. Well, this is what I'm assuming, okay? Is what's gonna happen. Little Afton was entranced by this thing that he was inspired to push it to the next level. Hear me
much
out.
was wrong with the world. The simple show would go on for years, bringing happiness to hundreds of travelers passing through looking for a quick meal. But it left a permanent impression on one little boy, capturing his imagination in a way that nothing else had. One little boy named Billy. That was his nickname.
It's Willy Boy! That's Willy Boy. That's little Willy Boy. Look at that. Look at that. This little innocent child will turn out to be the biggest piece of shit in the entire franchise. You are an asshole, sir. You, boy, are an asshole. You should have never shown up to Fredbear's, buddy. But
At least, but his parents like to call him William Afton.
Willy
The
boy,
bear could
yep.
dance. It could sing. For decades, William dreamed of recreating that moment of bringing a musical bear to life, but how? William was smart, without a doubt, and he had a keen mind for business,
He's
but
a nerd.
wasn't the most creative. How do you make a singing, dancing bear come to life?
if Willy was a young lad, then he had kids late. This was in the 1930s, so considering that the kids are teenagers by the 80s, we'd want to assume maybe late 30s to 40s, because we didn't know when he died. We didn't know the age of his passing was. But he wasn't like a spring chicken in any way, shape, or form. Are we really going to theorize on how old William Afton was when he had kids? We're going to be here all day trying to figure it out, because, okay. So, if he's a kid, yeah, if he's Billy, if he's little Billy boy, during the 30s, yeah, no, he'd have to be at least like 40 then. Yeah, he had his kids late. He'd have to be in his 40s, because that would mean that William Afton would at least be hitting 60 by the time the 80s rolls around, because that's already 50 years later in the future. Oh shit, this guy had kids old, because even Michael was the oldest and he was still a teenager when the whole bite of 83 happened. Yeah, no, okay. That's interesting. This guy took his sweet time.
What he could do was using rudimentary costumes. We know, based on the retro poster that was hidden.
But that's just a theory.
At least at
A
one
game
point,
theory.
Fredbear was an actual bear. Dancing bear shows were a real form of entertainment. The only problem is that, timing-wise, none of our main characters would be the people in charge of that business in the 30s and a series of pizza restaurants in the 80s without.
Okay. Let's theorize how old he was. Okay, let's put the video aside for 5 seconds. Okay, William Afton. If we are looking at William Afton from an objective standpoint, William Afton would have at least had to be 60, close to 70, when he died, because William Afton was spring locked in the 90s. So by technical terms, William Afton was clinically dead at his 70s. When he was like close to 70 or late 60s. My assumption, okay? That's my assumption. And then he was still... The Remnant kept him alive for all that time. So essentially, he had a rebirth date. We don't know when exactly he came back. But let's just say, let's continue going forward. William Afton would be over 100 years old by the end of FNaF 6. Because by FNaF 3, it's 2023. So that's... We're in the 90s. That's 40 years old. That's 40 years later. Yeah, 90s. No, it's 30 years later. Never mind, I'm stupid. Ignore me. That's 30 years later. So, William would still be over 100 years old. Yeah, damn, bro was healthy. You gotta keep in mind, people from back then were a lot healthier than we are now. Let's be real here. These people definitely took better care of themselves than we did. And he was rich, so he could definitely afford a healthier lifestyle, even if it was expensive. So... And that's the thing. But another thing, William Afton was probably not healthy either because his skin was pale. He looked decrepit. According to certain lore bits, he looked decrepit. He was ugly. So who knows? He was just a spry guy, I guess.
Being extremely old. Best
Yeah,
case
you see?
scenario, if Afton's running the singing show when he's 18, that still puts him at nearly 70 when the first pizzeria opens and his murder spree begins.
Okay, you see, that's kind of why I feel. Yeah, you see, he was the McDonald's owner. You see, that's kind of why, like, this age is very iffy. Were they really? I mean, medicine was way worse. That's true. Well, who knows? Because that's the thing. This is kind of the point of discussion here. Like, how old was William really? Because the thing about it is, if he started, like, I want to assume William was at least 5 to 6 years old. At most, maybe 8 years old. If we put him in the double digits, he would be way too old for anything past the 90s. Because now that I'm thinking about it, by the time he hits the 70s, and, you know, by the time he hits 70, and if it's the 90s, it doesn't make sense for him to be as spry as he is. Given, like Zaptal said, the medicine not being as great. But yeah, but the food was also healthier, so our bodies weren't exactly... Fuck, this is really... Let's keep watching.
This doesn't make a lot of logical sense because he doesn't become immortal until his first death in Springtrap. That's
which is in the 90s.
I suspect that Fredbear's Singing Show was either a family business that Afton then carried on to a new generation, or something that he saw as a kid and just wanted to recreate when he grew.
This one makes the most sense to me because, as he stated earlier, William Afton is smart. He's a smart guy. And keep in mind, he didn't do this on his own. He had Henry Emily's help. So... what I want to assume is William Afton saw the traveling show at some point during his childhood. He was inspired. He was a toddler and it was a core memory. That could also be it. That it was a memory that he really like holds near and dear, a core memory as it's called. And what's the word? He carried that and decided at some point, because keep in mind, William Afton was not always a killer. At some point, you know, he wanted to spread the joy that the original show that inspired him spread. Now he becomes an asshole probably around the time he has kids. Who knows? Because obviously when he's making money and his work is well known, you become greedy, yada yada. That could be the case of his assholism, okay? But let's have Matt Pat keep talking, okay?
Up. William was inspired by the work of Walt Disney, who throughout the 50s and 60s was pioneering the use of mascot suits throughout his theme park. The big innovation? Suits with 5 fingers. This allowed the performers wearing the suits to use their natural arms and hands to interact with the guests, as opposed to the older models where the arms would just hang limply by their sides. Finally, with a simple mascot suit, he would be able to realize his childhood dream. He would be able to bring Fredbear to life. To appeal to the kids, and for copyright reasons, he changed Fredbear from a realistic brown animal to a cartoonish yellow bear with a purple hat and bow tie. But feeling like one character wasn't enough, he added another friend, a yellow rabbit with a purple vest and matching tie named Bonnie the Bunny. Well,
there he is. There's the #1 asshole. This guy right here, the perpetrator, the piece of shit. This will be the association with a murderer right there. This yellow Bonnie. Yellow Bonnie, bro.
Bear was certainly his first love. Bonnie was extra special because that was his. It was an original character that he had created from scratch. And I do mean scratch. William's hand-sewn costumes were rough with seams and stitches visibly showing. It's a handcrafted suit. You can see the seams and everything. It even has 5 fingers for the performer's hands. It is very much not a Springtrap
So yeah, so you gotta remember before the Springlock animatronics and stuff, they had number one asshole. There he is. But you gotta remember before the whole Springlocks and hybrid suits came to be, they had Henry, and like a general thing that the FNAF community tends to agree on is that they had like physical normal like cloth suits, you know. And those suits were what William and Henry used during the early days of their operation. Now, from what I've seen in other lore bits or in other lore discussions, is the fact that they used these suits until they realized they couldn't make the time for them to perform. Because keep in mind, like I said, William and Henry would be at the forefront of the performance. Now, he hasn't mentioned Henry yet. He'll get to Henry in a bit, I assume. But Henry and William were performers at a generally small little operation. Evening, folks. Hey, Lenny! Welcome to the reaction shoot, my friend. Bunny the Bonnie and Chica the Kitchen.
Suit. This is something much more
You're doing great, Lenny.
It came at a time before animatronics were a part of the story. That's why I suspect that it was actually the first.
That makes sense.
Literally everything.
Yeah,
it's also a suit that is very personal to Afton. He put his digital consciousness in that form. It's his...
That part does not make any fucking sense. No, that one does not make any sense. Because, I mean, I guess you could say... When it comes to manifesting as a digital apparition, he manifested into the suit. But even then, like, bro, this whole digitization of Afton is really, really bad. I don't like it.
Personal avatar. It's the way that he sees himself. There's also a whole separate discussion to be had here about the habits and rituals of serial killers. So the fact that he's choosing to lure kids and kill them in this particular suit actually says a lot about his emotional attachment to it. So while Fred seems to have started as someone else's creation, Golden Bonnie was uniquely William's, giving him a personal connection. And that's not all. In this whole franchise, only one set of characters have themselves 5 fingers, the Nightmares. Even Golden Fredbear was a 5-fingered wearable suit at one point in the story, as we see in this shot from the graphic novel, before he, like everyone else, was turned into an animatronic. This seems to imply that all of the main characters had similar wearable mascot outfits.
I wouldn't go that far. I would honestly like to disagree at this point, mostly because sure, it's a cool theory to kind of like believe that the animatronics or the original 4 at some point had a wearable or were wearable, but at the same time, like implying that they were wearable would imply that they would be a Springlock variation that has not been explored. And at the same time, because here's the thing, these guys would be created around the time Fredbear and Fredbear's diner was operational. So if anything, here's the thing, okay? So if these guys were wearable at some point, they were quote-unquote modernized into a different suit. Kind of like how the FNAF 1 animatronics are the withered animatronics, but the withereds are the FNAF 1s from back then. So the withereds were quote-unquote modernized. So, but that would also imply they've been using the same exact 4 animatronics. You don't like Chica body and that head together? It looks really weird, yeah. But that would imply that the original 4 have been basically hand-me-down since God knows when. And that doesn't make any sense. Especially coming from William Afton, who is a absolute genius. Same with Henry, by the way. 2 geniuses.
Fits at least at one point in time. And that whoever is having the FNAF 4 nightmares, if they even are nightmares, saw...
They are nightmares, and I will die on this hill. I refuse. Like, I'm willing to hear you out, but I refuse to believe that, with how intelligent William is, I refuse to believe that the FNAF 4 Nightmare animatronics are actual animatronics. A lot of people like to point to evidence in search location and stuff, and that's all fine and dandy, but for me, it just genuinely does not make any sense. I don't know about you guys. What do you guys think? Just, leave it in the chat, and I'll look at it. They are nightmares, exactly! It's in the name!
Fredbear would perform on stage to small but enthusiastic crowds. Finally, he was able to deliver fantasy and fun to all the kids, delighting and inspiring them in the exact way that he had been delighted and inspired.
You see, this is the point I had made. This is the point I had made earlier, where William Afton was inspired. Yeah, he's using... Okay. Here's the thing, and here's a theory, a pretty neat theory I saw with the nightmares themselves. The nightmares are figments of the child's imagination because of, the bullies that they wear the mask and stuff. But William Afton uses sounds that are so high frequency that the ear can perceive them. So here's the thing. So you may ask, what does this got to do with the nightmares? If a sound is high enough frequency, your ear can't process it, but at the same time, it can become sort of like a hallucinogenic. I forget what exactly it's called, but eventually, if you're basically overloading you're overloading your brain with sound that you can't even hear, and eventually you start processing things differently, aka hallucinating. Now, I don't remember exactly how it went, but that's kind of the main gist of it. A hallucination disc, yeah, something like that would work.
Many years ago. Afton, despite eventually falling to become the heartless serial killer and mad
it said Michael is having nightmares from his brother's death, but that's the thing. Here's the thing. Another theory for FNaF 4. The first first 5 nights is the crying child. It's Evan or whatever the fuck his name is. It's him. Okay. The first 5 nights, you gotta tell your leader. Okay. I'm gonna hear it out. But the first 5 nights is the crying child. Okay. Night 5 is when he dies. Whatever that minigame is, anything we see after that minigame is the crying child in his deathbed. Now, here's the thing. Here's another thing that conflicts. Here's the thing that conflicts with my theory. Nightmare. Now, you may say, what about Nightmare? Nightmare, to me and to a lot of people, is supposed to be the FNaF embodiment of death, at least in this game, because of course Nightmarion is consistently crying child's name is Dave, by the way. Dave? Okay, so Dave. We gotta name him Dave. Okay, so Dave dies in night 5 and anything passes Michael. But here's the thing, here's the conflict. Again, why would the embodiment of death visit Michael Afton? Like, it could also be that it's like a premonition, but I would get him having nightmares of the original 4 and Fredbear. Because Michael was one of the 4 that bullied his brother, wearing a Foxy mask, while the other 3 wore like the Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy mask. But Fredbear is his biggest guilt, with Fredbear being towards the end of the night, being the more difficult one to deal with. Now, here's the thing though. Again, Nightmare. Nightmare himself is Nightmare/Nightmarion are perceived to be the embodiments of death in this universe. So, why would the embodiment of death visit Michael on night 8? And here is a theory you all may actually have a little bit of an if about. Night 6 is Michael dealing with his guilt. Nightmare Night is Dave on his deathbed. It's him passing. So essentially night 7 takes place before the cutscene that we get. I'm pretty sure it's night 6. So we get the cutscene on night 6 is meant to be after night 7. Night 7 is Dave's last day alive, or last night alive. He is fending against the embodiment of death, but eventually death takes him, he passes and moves on, possessing Golden Freddy along with Cassidy. Now, whether you agree with that, you're free to disagree. It is kind of a stretch theory, but it kind of, to me, it sort of makes sense, given, again, Nightmare / the Nightmarion are meant to be the embodiments of death. But the thing about it is, Michael doesn't fully die. He gets remnant. He technically dies, but he doesn't. It's kind of like a William thing. He has multiple death dates. So at the same time, why would the embodiment of death come to him, let's just say potentially like 10 years prior minimum? I don't remember when Sister Location takes place, but it does take place after William disappears. So I want to assume at least it's 10 years. So why would it come to him 10 years before he dies? Like, again, it could have been the hint, right? The hint that he's passed. But again, for me, it's likely to believe that nights 1 through 5 and Nightmare Night are Dave's nights, with Nightmare Night being his final night, the night on his deathbed. Night 5 also him nights 5 and night 7 are essentially his deathbed nights, with again night 7 just being his absolute final night.
We know him as began as someone with good intentions and a love of entertaining kids. He wanted to bring things to life.
Okay, the thing about it is Sister Location. No, I want to assume Sister Location is past the 90s, because keep in mind, not William. Michael is looking for his father. Okay, he is looking for his father, who has already gone missing. William went missing past FNaF 1. or around FNaF 1. FNaF 1 takes place in 1993, and given that we play as Michael during the 1993 game, it is safe to assume that that sister location, for me, the latest would be 1990. 1991 by a stretch, but 1990 the latest. You could probably say 1989, but at the same time, Michael at this point is probably like a grown-up, so if he can work a job, or if he can essentially do something, I would want to assume, because he already lives on his own, so I would want to assume Michael is also at least an adult, at least 18 years of age. So, yeah, no, it kind of makes sense, because he would be a teenager by the events of 1983.
From the very beginning, a theme that recurs a lot for him throughout the rest of the franchise. And things could have ended there.
Damn, good damn point, Scott. What the fuck were you making? This isn't even cooking. It's just uncooked. Yeah, it's Scott's way of portraying the Lord is very neat. It's very difficult to kind of just, because this is the thing about FNaF lore, okay? I can watch this video and disagree with it, and watch another one and agree, or I can watch multiple videos with different sets and agree with all of them. The thing about the FNaF lore is, as far as most of us know, there is no wrong timeline of events if certain games fit, if certain events fit that specific agenda and you can explain it. Some explanations conflict with another video, but at the same time, it coincides with another one or another theory. So it's very, the lore itself is super theory driven, and I really do like it because of that, but at the same time, it's one of the gripes I have, because there's no concrete evidence suggesting that, yeah, this is part of the lore. This right here is what it's meant to be, okay? Let's continue.
That could have been the end to his story. It could have been perfect had it not been for one thing. Other people saw the success of his idea and they wanted in. Enter Chica's Party World, a rival restaurant starring performing animal characters.
Okay, that's an interesting take. That's an interesting thing. Chica starting off as a rival operation to Fredbear's, and that's how Chica gets integrated, is with either them joining forces or William using the assets that he had to purchase purchase Chica's Party World and basically integrate them into one. That's at least what I'm assuming he's going at.
Except they did it better. William may have been the first, but obviously he wasn't the best. It hurt the prideful William Afton to admit it, but this restaurant was able to do the thing that he always wanted to do: make the animals actually come to life. All of the performers in this restaurant were robots, simple metal skeletons that were powered by battery packs, but all of them able to turn and talk and dance on their own, no human required. It was like magic that came from the mind of a brilliant creator named Henry Emily.
Okay, that's an interesting way to integrate Henry Emily. Okay, having him start off as and it also solidifies William's hatred for him, because William doesn't like this guy. Like towards the story, he begins to envy him. So it's an interesting way to also establish the fact that William has always envied Henry from the start. William is a smart. It establishes William as being a smart businessman, but Henry Emily has the brains on the mechanical side. And eventually William learns from him, leading to the events of Sister Location and the animatronics that are operational there. Okay, that's interesting. I like that. I actually like that.
In some small way, had been able to harness the power of life itself. Afton admired him.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Jealous, to be sure, but he also looked upon this man with awe. Off to one side of Chica's Party World was a small cabaret stage featuring an elephant magician. On the other, a hippo known to ramble on.
We love this guy, by the way. Mr. Hippo, top 5 animatronic. We love this guy.
On and on. That one was more of a joke for the parents, but it was the main stage that was for the kids. A rocking band of characters featuring a yellow chicken thing with a southern drawl named Chica, backed by a band of other country-themed characters, including a pig with a banjo, an upbeat frog from the local swimming hole, and a brown bear with a heavy southern accent.
Okay. I like that. Because here's the thing. I never understood where the mediocre melodies fell. It makes sense that Chica was originally a mediocre melody. For starters, Chica is supposed to be kind of like a southern-themed animatronic, I guess. But it also fits the fact that Henry created the mediocre melodies when he was an independent, when his operation was more of an independent thing and a rival to Afton Robotics. He didn't even have Afton Robotics, so a rival to Afton's operation. And at the same time, it also makes room for them to just not be something of a gameplay feature in FNaF fucking Pizza Sim. Because in Pizza Sim, they're there, but prior to that, we don't see them. I don't know if they appeared in the books. I haven't read the books, so if there's something on the books that I missed, you can crucify me for it. But as far as I'm concerned, these guys never didn't appear in a single game. I don't think they were referenced prior. So having them essentially, or basically lumping them in with Henry before he partners up with William is actually a really genius thing. I like that.
A bear? But bears were his animals. Why not a cow or a horse? Something to fit the country theme a bit better. Why'd it have to be a bear? And adding insult to injury, they had the nerve to call this thing Ned Bear, a direct copy of his own Fredbear.
Whoops, that's gonna leave a mark.
I've suspected that the mediocre melodies played a much more important role in the story than just being a bunch more animatronics to fill out the roster. Especially Ned Bear, which is just so suspiciously close to Fredbear.
They don't appear
and
in the
there
books.
are two key details that we're gonna have to justify with
Okay.
any mediocre melodies.
Your
mentioned.
power went
One,
out?
they're very rudimentary with external battery packs, implying that they come very early in the timeline. And two, we know that at minimum, Mr. Hippo does eventually become an official member of the extended Freddyverse. But if these things are supposed to be cheap, generic rip-offs, why would you be trying to rip off yourself? You wouldn't. You would be stealing someone else's ideas. So if Afton created Fredbear, there would have to be some rival franchise. The only other person who would likely be ripping him off, Henry. We've talked extensively about how the mediocre melodies are clearly Henry's design.
Peanut butter,
aesthetic, so
bruh.
it just has to be him. I don't think Henry's doing this maliciously. He doesn't strike me as the type. He was likely building the robots at the orders of someone else that was running a rival restaurant franchise. But that's enough motivation to start Afton down a path of jealous rivalry.
Okay, that makes sense. It makes sense that Henry essentially, quote unquote, copying his idea. Hey, Orly, by the way, hello, welcome to stream, my friend. Sorry to know that your power went out. I haven't gotten any rain here yet. It's like a little windy outside, but it's not rainy. It's still really sunny. But Henry is essentially building something that's really close to Afton's creation, or quote unquote Afton's, I should say, because that's to be fair, Fredbear is not Afton's. Also leads to Afton building that jealousy and hatred towards Henry Emily, which he again heavily projects throughout the story.
But also begrudging
Pretty genius.
admiration. As the Freddy Files Ultimate Edition says, it's important to revisit the beginning of Henry and William's relationship, so here you go. I think this is where it begins. Also, this is future Matt Pat here coming back to add this one in. Seems like the recently released character encyclopedia has backed up all of this speculation. I've had this timeline written for about a month now, but I've also been holding off a bit to see what wrenches this character encyclopedia might throw into it. And on this particular point, I gotta say, it seems like we might actually have nailed it. They actively call out the suspicious similarities to the main Fredbear crew. Quote from one of the pages: Ned Bear looks like an imitation, altered just enough to avoid copyright issues. I don't know about you, but that seems to imply that we were right on the money.
No, that's good. Okay, so we can put that one to rest. We can't really put that one to theory. You own those books? Oh shit, Ely's got some lore on her. Look at that.
Franchises had to have merged.
Sorry.
That's really the only way that you get Mr. Hippo from the rival franchise as part of the Fazbear crew. This also mirrors a lot of what happened in the real-life history of Chuck E. Cheese, with two rival restaurants, each with their own casts of characters, merging to become one unified brand. Again, we've gone into that in detail with other videos, just wanted to remind you all of that here. But why would I call out the rival restaurant as being named Chica's Party World? A few things, actually. First, we know for a fact that a location named Chica's Party World exists.
Yeah.
It is mentioned in the source code teasing sister location, so it is out there somewhere and doesn't fit cleanly anywhere. Second, in the story The Puppet Carver, Chica is very explicitly looped in with the book versions of Pig Patch and Ned Bear, implying that she started as a mediocre melody.
Okay.
Thirdly, her design just fits better with a theme of down-home country animals with southern accents playing the banjo and eating with bits.
You see, that's what I'm saying. Chica, her design, at least that design specifically, fits more with a southern theme going, like the southern thing they got going on. So it makes sense that she was a mediocre melody first, and then considering that the book sort of reinforces that, it makes it be a little more cohesive.
And with her being the headliner of the show with her name on the restaurant, it would make sense then that when the restaurants merged, she was the one that was added to the main cast of characters while all the other mediocres faded away. It's also why when Freddy's closes after William's killing spree, she's the one to branch back off into her old franchise and is therefore missing in sister location. A detail that's bothered me for years at this point. It might also explain
I've back been bringing the boys to give it a second chance, and stream failing left me at a cliffhanger. Alright, I gotcha.
why William decided to stuff his first dead kid into Chica. That one was Henry's creation, not his. Afton's jealous admiration turned to hardened bitterness.
So okay, so this again, he's making the whole Afton hating Henry thing be a lot more cohesive than it should be. Mostly because again, he is stuffing these kids in Henry's creations to kind of paint Henry in a bad light because he's trying to tear him down. It makes sense.
Over the next couple of years as families continue to choose Chica's party world over Fredbear's. William just couldn't compete with the appeal of the robots. Eventually, his restaurant would go bankrupt, only to get bailed out by, of course, Henry Emily. Another insult, another humiliation that William wouldn't soon forget.
Okay.
1979. Despite being bitter, Afton couldn't deny that what came next was a period of massive success and expansion. With the two franchises now merged into one, it was the best of both worlds. Afton's ideas with Henry's robotic expertise.
Bad Willie, you get the water spray. Psst, 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 psst. Okay, this is what I was saying earlier. You see, having William's like ingenious, I guess you could say marketing or like business side of thing or business strength with Henry's mechanical genius, you can merge
them. The two
them.
men decided to launch under a new name, Fredbear's Family Diner, a pizza chain that would eventually come to feature a mix of humans in performing suits as well as on-stage animatronics. Yep. They decided to stick with Fredbear as the headliner, considering the yellow bear was easily identifiable as a brand because he was the original performing animal mascot. Afton appreciated that. This new restaurant would also see a mix of characters as the two franchises merged into one, with Pig Patch and Happy Frog performing right alongside Fredbear and Bonnie. And as part of this one big Fredbear family, they even got themselves official merch that were released, ranging from masks to magnets.
The crappy Mr. Hippo fridge magnet?
You take that back, you stupid child. That magnet is peak, and I won't hear otherwise.
Magnet?
Don't apologize.
That said, not all the characters were winners. The reception to some characters was just mediocre, so they faded away into the dumpster, storage units, and retro budget tech stores of lost nostalgia, waiting for their chance to step back into the limelight if and when a headliner went out of commission. Others, though, would fare much better, like a new Pirate Fox, as well as a blue guitar-playing variant of the yellow Bonnie Bunny. Ultimately, the franchise would get so big, it would spawn its own cartoon show, Fredbear and Friends.
Yeah, 1983.
Business was booming. In the end, Fredbear and Bonnie's popularity would be so strong that they would be able to support the Fredbear's Family Diner franchise all on their own, while also spinning off a new sister location dedicated to their friends. In 1983, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza launched, giving a dedicated home to all this new supporting cast of characters.
Keep in mind, I want to generally assume this is also the same location from the original Five Nights at Freddy's. So, because the original Five Nights at Freddy's, the location had been around for quite some time. I think it had closed down and then it reopened. And I believe they also tried reaching to Henry. Now, there was that one, and there was the quote-unquote new and improved that we got in FNaF 2. So this location has been around for quite some time. Okay, the original one. At least is what I'm assuming.
The Blue Bunny, Foxy the Pirate, and of course the headliner, a brown Freddy Fazbear. Business was good, and Afton was happy, mostly. It did bother him that the one original character that he created, the one that he himself played, Golden Bonnie, got passed over for inclusion in that cartoon show. The only character in the roster of regulars to get ignored for the show, but other than that, things were going smoothly. He had himself a wife, 2 sons, a daughter.
Again, if somebody as ugly and ugly-minded as Afton can get married and have 3 kids, I forgot what I had said that one time. You should rethink your entire life. There you go. There you go. Hey, you are a pirate! Arr.
He had a thriving business, and best of all,
he
was able to learn the craft of robotics from the man that he both loved and hated, Henry. Together.
Okay, you see, yeah, this is exactly what I had pointed out. Bro hates his kids. Yeah, he hates his kids. Bro, here's what I had pointed out. William starts off being a very, very able businessman. He knows how to handle business. He's very strong in that suit. But eventually, after partnering up with Henry, like I said, he learns. Because William is smart.
They were constantly pushing the limits of what these characters could do. Because it was quick and easy, new characters introduced into the roster would be given a simple hand-sewn suit with 5 fingers that any performer could wear. Eventually, Henry would design one of his signature animatronics for that character, utilizing a divided mouth with either a hinged or sliding jaw design. This was the first generation of animatronics. But why stop there? Afton had big ideas. What if the animatronics weren't just locked to the stage, but could freely roam the restaurant and interact with the kids? What if his mascot suits could become animatronics? What if you could use more than just rigid metallic skeletons? Why not experiment with tubes and wires that would give the animatronics fluidity and flexibility while still providing structure? The possibilities for this technology were endless. Afton fell in love with robotics. He had started with a dream of bringing one simple singing bear to life, but with robots, he had stumbled across the tools that gave him the ability to control life itself. And thanks to Henry, he was
from the start
speedrunning his way to an engineering degree. And while William wouldn't admit it out loud, one other thing that kept pushing him forward was the desire to beat his former rival, to prove
the jealousy.
himself smarter and more
I'm
capable,
stupid.
to
Look at
surpass
that
the man who everyone else considered to be a visionary genius. But pride cometh before the fall.
I mean, technically speaking, Henry Emily was the one with the smarts at first. So technically speaking, he is the original visionary genius. Afton is the businessman. You gotta remember, Afton is the businessman. Henry is the guy who knows how to handle all the wires and the mechanics and shit. He is the guy with the calculations. Obviously, Afton learned, but Henry did it first. Why is he jealous? Because Afton's an asshole and we don't like him.
Tragedy was about to strike.
Oh shit, and here we go. Afton era.
1983, business was booming with two whole restaurant franchises
1983.
running. Fredbear's Family Diner and the newly opened Freddy Fazbear's
Yo, I want some pizza.
Together, William and Henry had been able to take the hybrid suit idea and make it into a reality. They called their new invention the Springlock suit. And fittingly enough, it was symbolic of the partnership between these two men. A human suit as designed by William that could become a freestanding Henry-style robot. But because it was still new tech with kinks to work out, the rollout was limited, restricted only to the Fredbear's Family Diner location. All of this meant that William was busier than ever. He didn't have time to be a full-time parent, so he designed a nanny cam system where cameras and speakers were hidden throughout the neighborhood, as well as in his youngest son's favorite toy.
Okay, you see, him not having time for his kids, and then eventually just it leads to child neglect, and Afton just seeing him more as a burden because he's too busy trying to make money and realize his dream. It makes sense. I see it. I see it.
Psychic friend Fredbear. I mean, plushy Fredbear. But since cameras just weren't enough to raise a kid, he also left childcare duties to his eldest son, Michael.
Which is not a good idea.
There was problem with that. Michael was far from the best babysitter. He tormented his younger brother by jump scaring him with a foxy mask and constantly left him behind. William watched all of it from his cameras. Kids would be kids. Tomorrow was another day after
He did
all.
nothing.
Except Michael's torment didn't stop. Bitter, angry thoughts would run through Michael's mind. Why did he have to be the one to take care of this whining crybaby all the time? It just wasn't fair. It was time that he got even with his brother by playing the ultimate prank. A prank that just so happened to be on this crying child's birthday. He and his friends would take his scared little brother and make him do the one thing that he was terrified of doing, getting close to the animatronics. That would be embarrassing for the kid that was such an embarrassment to him. His brother squirmed, screamed.
Okay, let me cook here, chat. Let me cook here. Okay? What if, okay, here comes a curveball. Elizabeth was just the good kid who just didn't listen. Yeah, she was the good child who turned out to be worse than the other two because she became the Scrap Baby, and we all know Scrap Baby isn't exactly a good and quiet child. But hear me out. What if the FNaF 4 minigames, okay, and this may be the stupidest theory you hear all day, but what if the games we get in the middle of the night were the ones that led to the FNaF 4 nights? So you could say, but how does that make any sense? Remember what I had said about FNAF 4's Night 5 and 7 being the child's deathbeds? Now, hear me out. What if we play as the dying crying child? You said it was Dave? Yeah, we play as Dave on his dying week. Okay? FNaF 4 is the thoughts of a dying brain, of a dying child. And the only thing he can think about are the nightmares that essentially plagued the last days of his life, but 10 times worse. The nightmare animatronics are a figment of how he sees his bullies, with Fredbear on Night 5 being him already basically losing grip in life, and Night 6 and 7 it being that 10 times worse. Night 6 being a worse one, and Night 7 just being the night he dies in. Do I have anything to back it up? Absolutely not, but to me it kind of makes sense. But the minigames were just spread throughout the timeline. Because keep in mind, FNAF storytelling through the minigames the minigames tend to talk in a past sense. The minigames don't tell us what's going on in the current time of the event of the game. They're telling us what happened before the game, okay? So would it make sense for FNAF 4 to do the same thing? I think so. I think all of the minigames featuring the crying child, aside from the very last cutscene, which is the one where he dies, all take place before the events of Night 1 in Five Nights at Freddy's 4. That's just a theory, though. And it's probably going to be disproven really fast.
Just as they were putting that small, squirming boy up to Fredbear's lips, the mouth snapped shut. The sensitive spring locks inside the body had been triggered by the boy's movements, and they'd immediately clamped down. The wriggling stopped. The boy went limp, but it was just a prank. It was meant to be funny. The boy was taken to the hospital and was immediately given an IV. Flowers and pills filled the nightstand next to his hospital bed, but the damage was too severe. He couldn't recover. As the younger brother's consciousness began to fade, he could hear Michael's last words.
It makes sense.
Small and flimsy apology. But his father, Williams, through the voice of the Fredbear plush, were a firm and committed promise to a dying son. You're broken. I will put you back together. This would not be the end. No matter what, Williams' son would live again. It would just take time. Time that, right now, he just didn't have. His young son's heart flatlined as the boy faded into the inky unknown of the afterlife. In the aftermath of the tragedy, changes started happening around the restaurants. Kids were now required to wear security wristbands to prevent anyone from getting outside without parental permission. Any kid who approached the exit without permission would have to answer to the security puppet, a marionette on strings that could fly around on rails across the restaurant to stop kids in their tracks. It was Williams' idea, inspired by Michael constantly leaving the restaurant without his
makes
brother.
sense.
In the wake of Fredbear's spring lock failure, all the hybrid suits were getting retired, locked away at the nearby Freddy Fazbear location. It was yet another tough pill to swallow after all the hard.
Again, that reinforces that the FNAF 1 location is the same one as the one he's talking about, because this room that it's locked away in is the safe room that basically no one has access to. No, the animatronics, aside from just the employees, the animatronics don't have access to the safe room. So, original FNAF location, 1993. From FNAF 1. Same one.
He and Henry had put into them. William would eventually bury the boy's small body in a remote location out in the woods right alongside his drive into and out of work every day. The death of this little boy sent the family spiraling. His wife, crippled with grief, was so distraught that all she could do was sit and watch TV.
That's not his wife, by the way.
Michael was far worse. Complaining of seeing hallucinations of a golden bear standing outside of his window, the boy was so racked with guilt that he was convinced that he was being haunted by the ghost of his brother stuck inside.
See, this is kind of where that theory that the nightmares are not Michael's and not Evan's.
Into the wet earth, the words "It's me" ringing through Michael's ears. Some nights, Michael would even go so far as to break out of his room to check the gravesite and ensure that his brother was still there. As for William himself, he disappeared into his work and his drinks. Junior's, the local bar, wasn't far from his son's gravesite. He found himself going there more and more frequently,
or at least theorized to be,
and longer amounts of time there. The bar gave him a place to think, to remember, to reflect and stew on how Henry had stolen his idea for an
that makes sense.
How they'd cut his character
Motherfucker, I can read the future.
when everyone else was there. How Henry had humiliated him by buying him out of bankruptcy.
Shit.
And now there was his son. Henry had taken his son from him. The robotic part was the part that failed after all. William ordered one more drink, but it was one too many. The bar turned him out and told him to go home. But William didn't go home. Drunk and angry, William raced back to the restaurant to give Henry a piece of his mind, only to find someone else waiting. Henry's daughter, Charlie, locked outside of the building, laughing at her through the window. Fine, some other problem to fix. But then Afton got an idea, a beautifully awful idea. This was his chance.
This is the start. This is the start, the proper start of the Afton era. So if you guys don't know what's gonna happen, well, actually, you know what's gonna happen.
Chance to get back at the man that had humiliated him all those years ago. Henry had killed his business, and now Henry's robotic suit had killed his son. It was time for William to do some killing of his own. Let Henry feel what it's like to have something you love get ripped away. While parties continued inside the walls of the pizzeria, William attacked Charlie in the back alley. It felt good. He felt free. The years of resentment and bitterness trapped in his heart finally released in a moment of pure unapologetic evil. He would make Henry hurt like he hurts.
Like, that's the thing. When you're grieving, a lot of it makes sense, because when you're grieving and shit like that happens and you're essentially not thinking straight, you want to point the finger at someone. And it makes sense for someone like William to instantly go to Henry and basically project all of his problems on him. So So far, so good. Excellent.
And in
Characters.
that moment, William became a killer. He dropped Charlie's lifeless
Balloon Boy
body
versus
into a
Mealor.
home, forced to confront his family problems later that night. Appalled, but also a little excited by what he had just done. Charlie's death would remain on the books as a random act of violence. And though Henry had suspicions about William, there was no physical evidence. Nothing that could link him back to the crime. In the weeks that followed, Fredbear's family diner would close for good. Two high-profile deaths around the restaurant with two
Maybe he just
grieving
went to
owners in such
therapy?
a short period of time was just too much bad press to handle. Besides, Freddy Fazbear's was still open, and it was the newer restaurant anyway. All the equipment from the diner, including the old yellow suits and security puppet, would get retired to that location. And there they would sit for 2 uneventful years. The rest of 1983 and 1984 were spent quietly grieving. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the new cast of characters were a hit. Tragic memories of their yellow predecessors quickly faded. Afton kept a low profile and buried himself in work and research, quickly reaching Henry's level of engineering and even surpassing him. And while Henry slowed down to grieve, Afton kept going, even starting his own company, Afton Robotics.
There it
all those
is.
pet projects that were a little bit
5
too
Nights at
experimental for
Therapy?
the regular operations
We need
of
that. We need that
pizzeria.
game.
The
Yo,
first
Scott
of
Coffin,
these
come back.
experimental projects was a secret workshop under his house, a veritable bunker, which allowed him
Robbing
to work while
money.
still monitoring his kids via hidden security cameras.
Yeah, this one-
1983. A passcode that served as a constant reminder of why the cameras were so important, why he was down there in the first place. This was all to fulfill the promise that he had made to his son, right? I will put you back together. This was for him. All for him, right? But cameras weren't enough. He needed to solve the runaway Michael problem. He had to keep him in the house. He couldn't have another one of his kids wind up dead inside of an animatronic suit. So why not run a little experiment on Michael? You see, all this work with Henry had gotten Afton to start learning more about life, robots, the human mind, and what a fallible machine we as humans were. Our reality is so easy to manipulate with a few sensory deceptions.
This is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There it is. He said the thing. This is exactly what I'm saying. A high enough frequency sound can mess with the human brain to the point of hallucinations.
With just a few sounds, he had discovered that he could alter a person's vision. He could transform blank, smooth plastic robots into lumbering, twisted nightmares. Nightmares far scarier than he could create with actual materials. They would appear organic, rotting, putrid,
Michael!
terrifying. These would be his means of keeping his son Michael in the house where he belonged. Was it extreme? Maybe. But then again, this was the boy who had killed his son. He would make him sorry. And so Michael would grow up not only dealing with the memories of his own guilt, the
there it is.
the pills, the flowers, the death of his brother, but also facing literal nightmares, illusions created by sound. Michael would never forget these either. Years later, as a security
You see? That's what I'm saying. Okay, I'm glad it came up. I'm glad this was brought up because I haven't seen this video at all, but I have seen this theory float around that William Afton used high frequency sounds or certain sound pitches to mess with Michael, to mess with his mind, to keep him in the house so he wouldn't have to monitor him. That way he can keep working. Absolutely
He would
beautiful.
still draw pictures of them inside of his logbook. But all of these extra projects meant that his home life suffered even more. He was an absent father and a non-existent husband, leaving his wife cold and alone.
Why do you hide inside your walls when there is music in my hall?
Okay, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Ballora being in the image of Afton's wife is a bit of a stretch. I never understood that one. Not only Michael, but the fake Charlie in the books. Really?
All I
Huh.
see is an empty room. No more joy, an empty tomb.
I didn't realize that.
And despite her
that was
repeated
another
demands
that
that
was
he
the fake
leave his
Charlie.
office and engage with the family, he refused time and time again, leaving her no choice but to leave.
You burned down my house?
You call that a house? It was like a morgue in there. You need to see your son.
The baby isn't mine.
Well, how's this? I'm keeping the diamond ring.
And through it all,
I
there was
really
one
like that.
lingering feeling.
I like
William
that the
wasn't done. He had
that the
gotten a taste of
cutscenes
what it felt
basically
like to
give us
be
an insight of
free,
Afton's relationship
what it
with his
felt
wife.
like to be free. Charlie's murder had unlocked something in him, and
Oh,
he
shit.
wanted more. June 26th, 1985, putting on the golden Bonnie suit, he lured children
There
one
it
by
is.
one to the back room of
Was
the pizzeria
inspired?
when no one
Yeah.
was looking. At
I've
first,
heard
he
that
was
one
cautious.
before.
He would lure them with promises of cake and cookies. He told them that their dog had died. He would
You're
ask
saying that
for
Afton
help
couldn't
with
pull that
homework.
shorty,
Susan was
bruh.
the first. Never truly forget your first.
Yep, Chica was the first.
Where to hide
That one's
bodies.
the obvious
He
one.
couldn't sneak out. Someone would see him. He had to hide them in a place where they
Okay,
never-
okay. Have you guys seen that theory where, oh, like, like the way the animatronics behave are essentially how they went out. What Chica was the first, and it's like what Foxy went out, he tried running away. I forgot what Freddy was, and then it's like, well, what did Bonnie do? And it's just, it always cuts to Bonnie just going, "Urgh!" He just went throwing hands. He was throwing hands of Afton. But nah, that theory's pretty stupid, but I love it. It's funny.
They had to be stuffed inside of the suits.
Okay. Realistically, though, in a suit as thin as Foxy's, how are you going to hide a full-ass kid in there? You have to be blind. Have you seen what that grave could do with when he throws hands? Bruh.
Paint those things anyway, except for him. And so Susie would go into Chica.
Chica is understandable.
Jeremy and Gabriel would come next, but it was easy. It was too easy. And with each little life he snuffed out, his lies got bigger. Their house was burning. They're just being kidnapped. Until the last one where all pretense was off. He let himself get violent. Too violent.
I'll just wait for him after school, throw a bag over his head, hit him with a shovel, and drag him into the back of my car.
Yep, that was
Afton.
Afton.
He was far more bloody and broken than any of the others. He'd let himself go too far. That one. He
went out in an MMA
with
fight.
no more
Yeah, Bonnie throws fists like Mike Tyson. I'll tell you after, I'm not going to fight you. You're not going to kill me. And then next thing you know, he comes back as Bonnie. God damn it, he killed me. Yeah, I'm Bonnie Tyson. I could do I'm overdoing the list, but I don't care. He is Muhammad Ali.
Active animatronics left, he shoved the body into the one suit that remained backstage. The long-forgotten yellow Fredbear. Now broken and discolored with age. Broken, like Cassidy was broken. Like his son was
Splits the Red Sea.
Reported on this disappearance, naming the whole thing the missing children's incident.
Yep.
Police would even charge William with the crimes after finding security footage of the golden mascot suit luring kids to the back. But they couldn't convict him. They had no...
But that's wild, because technically, like, we didn't have advanced, like, DNA stuff back in the day. This is in the 90s, so I don't know how far it is. Or it is in the 80s, right? But it's wild that they didn't think to look back. Because they would have, like, he would have been dead by that point, but, like, imagine...
bodies, and his face had been hidden behind the mascot suit the entire time. What they had was circumstantial.
Bonnie is
best,
Goku.
So he walked away a free man. But Henry knew the truth. In these murders, he saw his daughter Charlie all over again. So he threw Afton out of the company and shuttered the doors to the old pizzeria. Henry would keep the franchise quiet for 2 years. This would not happen again.
No, that makes sense.
Could not happen again. How could he protect the kids?
I like how it's just
Finally, he developed a solution. He would implement
Marco with the
an even
RNG.
more
Look at him
extreme
shooting
security
Marco.
system in the form of new animatronics.
Oh, speaking of Toy Bonnie, there he is.
Inspired by the toys that they had been selling years ago. But these guys, these were special. They were a new breed of robot with facial recognition ability.
These guys are like Batman for real, bro.
But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database, so they can detect a predator a mile away.
All the original animatronics, now withered with age, were moved to the new location. With a plan in place, it was time
This is
to
the new
try
location,
once
yeah,
more.
not the
year
original
was
FNaF 1 location. This is the new
1987,
one.
And the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was making headlines in local newspapers. Headlines that just so happened to catch the attention of William Afton.
Willie
Freddy's
boy.
was back, and without him, that was his idea, his character. Henry was yet again trying to cut him out of
Mega
the
versus
picture.
Bonnie, that's
No.
like
As long
Gas
as these
Baby versus
restaurants
Hydrogen
stayed
Bomb.
open, William would always come back. Then he noticed the phone number to apply at the bottom of the article. $100 a week to apply call. Afton would go back, not as an owner or co-founder. He would go back in the one place that they would least suspect him, a lowly day shift security guard.
This one sort of doesn't really make sense, because if they're tied to a security database and Henry kicked them out, considering that Afton, keep in mind, Afton was already basically, they couldn't convict him, but he was suspected. They would have him on that database. You know, you don't just lose a record like that. It doesn't make sense. Afton working as a security guard does not make any sense.
There it was. Buried in the back of parts and services, mixed in with the old withered animatronics, was the golden rabbit. With the yellow security badge still on his chest, he used his crank to pull open the spring locks. It was time for Bonnie to give an encore performance.
Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the
No.
back, a yellow one. Someone used it.
Now, him infiltrating the location makes sense, but him being the security guard we play as does not make sense. Okay, I'm gonna put that out there. Him, because he's present during FNaF 2, but us playing as him again just makes absolutely no sense.
Right. From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out. You know, especially concerning any previous employees. When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift.
That was Jeremy. We're playing as Jeremy, I remember.
1987, 5 more kids. You
Yep.
know what felt better? Getting back into the suit after 2 long years of waiting, or knowing how devastating this would be to Henry the next morning. He didn't even try to hide his crime this time, just meant more blood on Henry's hands. He'd failed.
This
to
is
protect
outdated.
the
Yeah, this is
kids
outdated, I know.
again. The restaurant had only been open for a few weeks, but William was
I know, but it
sure
leaves- it
that
leaves-
this
it leaves
would
it
get
open
to
for discussion.
close. Good. If he couldn't have Freddy's, no one would. Whenever a new
Wild.
pizzeria opened, he
Wild
would
that you're
be
this
there.
petty,
But as he
dude.
sat in his bunker, something else started to linger in William's mind. He had seen something strange. The old withered animatronics. They had been wandering around the building, spurred on by the puppet.
Yeah, exactly.
It was
We-
almost
he's
like
the-
those old robots were trying to save the kids. Save them? They couldn't, obviously, but still, how were they moving? It was almost like they had been given life somehow. Did he have something to do with that? The following day, the news would report a security guard getting bitten by one of the animatronics during the day shift.
Yeah, that's him.
Was that
That's
bite
Jeremy.
meant for him? William's curiosity was stronger now than his bloodlust. He had to learn more, but how? There was no way he'd ever be able to get inside another Freddy's pizzeria. Heck, there was practically no way a Freddy's would ever open again. He needed to create something new, something brand new. He needed to create his own pizzeria.
Due to the massive success, and even more so the unfortunate closing of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was clear that the stage was set, no pun intended, for another contender in children's entertainment.
Circus Baby's Pizza World.
There it
is. This
Yep,
would be the place
there's-
where he could continue his work. No longer just murdering, experimenting. He needed more kids, and he needed them alive. And knowing that he couldn't show his face on the restaurant floor, he needed a way of remotely capturing his victims and preserving them for
And
his
that's where he
work.
creates
With
the
that
capture
goal in
mechanism.
mind,
Yeah.
He designed a new breed of animatronic. Their endoskeletons fluid and flexible. He equipped them with sound lures that could mimic
Movie said
voices.
she can
They
take
could
on the
isolate
entire behind its
children.
party.
They could
No, she can't.
incapacitate and contain them with zero
Yeah, for one of
direct
your characters
input
versus a
from
girl
him.
who was
It
taken out by a glass cup.
brilliant.
Nah, Megan
He
gets
was
clapped.
brilliant. Far beyond the simple bars and wires of
You gotta remember, it is stated that Bonnie defies the laws of physics. What the fuck is she going to do against Bonnie? Bonnie is going to hit her in the face and she's going to die. Like, it doesn't make sense. Oh, I gotta reload chat here real quick, hold on. I'm just reloading my chat, give me a minute. There you go. Okay, we're back.
Henry's designs. And the characters he chose for this were uniquely his. His new roster wasn't going to be tainted by Henry's disgusting barnyard bird. Instead, it was back to his characters, his creations. Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, as well as 2 special ones. The first, Ballora, was an homage
Infamous
to the woman who
first
left
punch.
him. Now she would never leave him again. The second,
Okay,
the
buddy.
titular baby was designed with his baby in mind. Elizabeth, his youngest child. She would always be Daddy's little girl.
Yeah.
The one that listened to him. The one that obeyed until the day that she didn't.
Iron Fist Bonnie. Yeah, Iron Fist Bonnie. Put him on more rivals, bro.
Shiny.
Bonnie's go, she's gonna be
Cut
clapped.
just for me?
Oh man,
The day
that
before
cry
Circus
haunts me.
Baby's
That
Pizza World
cry always
opened,
haunts
she
me.
disobeyed. She didn't listen. Left alone with Baby, she got too close. The animatronic ripped in half and swallowed her whole. A scared and confused child fading into eternal darkness. By the time Afton found her, it was too late. She was gone. He immediately canceled the launch of Circus Babies under the guise of a gas leak. But wait, as he sat there at the foot of the stage, he noticed that something was different. The eye color of the robot had changed.
Bro, meet a
Baby had been built
girlfriend.
with blue eyes, but now they were emerald green, the same color as Elizabeth's. Was she in there? Could this all be connected to the free-moving animatronics that he had seen at Freddy's? He had to know more. His mourning turned to excitement. He had to return to where it all
That's what
started.
Baby did.
1993.
There we are.
This place was pathetic. Henry had clearly tried to reopen one final time with those old original animatronics from so long ago,
Yeah.
but Williams' damage to the brand had been permanent. These things stank of death. They hadn't been washed in decades. But even if they had, nothing could wash away the stink of murder that haunted these halls. One night, then another.
Yeah,
then
it's the
another.
opposite,
William
Marco.
repeatedly snuck into the old broken restaurant to lure the living animatronics to him. One by one,
Yeah, there you go.
dismantling them, robbing them of their endoskeletons. The metal had to be the secret. It had to contain the remnants of life itself. But he had to know for sure. Leaping out of a room that was invisible to the animatronics programming, he dragged the oversized robotic skeletons back to his underground workshop. Back to where Circus Baby watched on with glowing, curious eyes. Eyes that somehow felt alive. Not knowing what else to do, William melted
Get
the
trapped,
robotic
boy.
parts down. 5 animatronic animatronic endoskeletons reduced down to one silvery puddle of goo. Could he transfer this living metal to his own creations? He had to try. He picked up a syringe and filled it with the molten metal and injected the goo into Funtime Freddy's twisted, wiry endoskeleton. And suddenly, the coils came to life. Like snakes writhing in a pile, what had once been cold, lifeless metal moved and jolted on its own. He'd done it! He had unlocked the secret to life itself. Except something was clearly wrong. The movements were erratic. They were violent, angry. Baby didn't act this way. She had been calm, collected. This was clearly something else, something mindless and frantic. Perhaps by mixing the souls and then portioning them out, he had created incomplete beasts. He would need to keep testing to truly understand it. He needed more of this remnant. As he searched the old pizzeria one more time for
this
any
part is
remaining
from the books.
scraps of
Okay,
metal,
yeah,
ghosts,
it makes sense that it's part from the
his
books.
past victims
This is
come
from the
to collect
game.
their due, all led
This is where
by
he gets clapped.
Cassidy. The five
This is where he
lined
gets
up and
this
blocked the door.
5v1. You get
Captain's
clapped.
mind reeled. The scientific implications of this were incredible. Ghosts, real ghosts
This is where
that he could see all standing against him.
Well,
What
yeah,
could they
buddy,
do?
they
What
hate
could
you.
they do? He panicked as Cassidy approached. How
Yeah,
do you
Cassidy,
stop
get his ass.
something that's already dead? Maybe with the thing that resulted in
Hey, look
their
at
death
his
in
arms
the
just-
first place. He would get into his suit like old times. He would regain his power over them just like the day that they
These robots are
died.
too
He
complex for
was
the 90s.
genius.
Well,
He
to be
was the
fair,
one
this
in
is
the
also
suit.
a
He was the
fictional
one in
storyline
charge.
about ghosts. And oh,
The spring lock snapped
Clap.
into place. Maybe it was his frantic movements. Maybe it was the leaky abandoned restaurant. Maybe it was just fate coming to collect its due. He didn't know. The only thing he did know was that his brain was suddenly filled with searing white-hot pain as hundreds of metallic pins and gears stabbed into his body from all sides. All
Yep.
he could do was collapse, blood slowly oozing out of the
absolutely.
suit and pooling onto the
Yeah,
floor.
beat his
around him.
ass.
It
Clap
couldn't
him.
end like
And he
this.
got and he got
It
clapped.
wouldn't end like this. His work was unfinished. Unable to move, his only option was to survive, to live, to
Get that
keep
water spray.
living. It took days lying in his own blood, but eventually someone found him. A security guard making a normal report. When he saw the animatronics torn apart in the middle of the party room floor, it caused him to file an immediate report of a break-in. An owner would have to come in and claim the damage. And who else would it be other than
But Henry?
Hope jumped in Afton's heart. Henry
Can't you run past them as there goes? But now let me get in the erratic springlock wetsuit. This guy
would see him.
ain't
They
that
were
smart.
partners, after all. He would be the one to help save him, to get him out of this suit, to relieve him from this
What can
tremendous
ghosts do
pain.
anyways?
Henry entered the secret room. His eyes fell on Afton sitting there in the pool of red, and Henry, saying nothing, turned and walked away.
This is just to inform all employees that
W Henry. Can we get a W Henry in chat? That's what Afton gets. You get what you fucking deserve. Anyways, real quick, we're gonna take a short break here. I'm going to actually make some coffee and then we'll do a little bit of discussion time, or a little more discussion time you guys like. I know I've been doing a whole lot of watching, but not a whole lot of discussing. But we can do a little bit of discussion time when I get my coffee. Nah, leave him, Henry. Yeah, leave him. But, okay, so before I go get my coffee, okay? He grittied on him. Before I get my coffee, first of all, I like that. I really do like that Afton was trying to essentially, or Afton, he didn't master, like, he discovered the secrets of it, but he didn't master it, as shown as when he tried to basically inject the thing into the animatronics, and, you know, they were like, you know what I'm saying? It's good that Henry was very spiteful of him, from what I'm seeing. Henry, basically, that spite that Afton, it implies that William got his karma for having spite for Henry. And, but again, one of the few things I am going to disagree here is, for starters, can I tell my theory when you get back? Yes, of course, and we can actually discuss it when I get back. For sure, we can have good discussion time. But the one thing I will disagree here that I saw in this video, and I'm pretty sure I said so, was the fact that William was the security guard at FNaF 2. Now, I know Marco had stated this is an outdated video, and it makes sense that it's outdated, but the thing about it is, even with it being outdated, it made absolutely no sense, given the fact that the name of the security guard is on the check at the end of the 6th night, and that's it. So, why would it be William? You know, you could say, oh, he went under a fake name, but what? I don't think it was ever implied that William faked his name. But again, we're gonna take a very, very short break here. I'm gonna get some coffee, get some air, and then we can resume some discussion time. So I'll see you guys here very shortly.
Going down, 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 down. say I'll never leave till night becomes day. Whatever happened to the others that came? Broken in pieces, smoking releases. Deep in the ruins, deep in the deep end. Swim in the ashes, naming the reasons. Tell them what happened, bury my feelings. There's a part of me that nobody sees. That part of me is begging for somebody to set me free. I'm in the rubble, in the ruins of a dark world. Dark thoughts at the bottom of a dark well. Oh no, I'm so close. Total insecurity when they come after me. Oh no, I'm so close. Total insecurity when they come after me.
I didn't mean to lie when I said you were safe. I'd keep the nightmares at bay. The first time that I saw you smile, I swore above all else I'd choose you over myself. But what if I couldn't save you? Even though I tried, what if the dark embraced you and you lost my light? If I couldn't cut the strings that kept you down, what if I couldn't save you? When I heard you cry, save me. Those nights when you got scared, you would cry, I would check for monsters under your bed. But I couldn't make it there when your fate would be sealed. The time the monster was real. What if I couldn't save you? Even though I tried, what if the dark embraced you and you lost my light? If I couldn't cut the strings that kept you down, what if I couldn't save you? When I heard you cry, save me.
There you go, my mic was muted. Hello. So sorry about that, folks. We are back. I was yapping and literally nothing came out of my mouth. But we are going. My theory is that Dave isn't William's child and is a kidnapped victim like Garrett in the movie. Dave is never shown to have a British voice like Mike and Lizzie. Okay. Okay. Give me a little more insight in this theory, because it's actually kind of interesting. So, what make, like, aside from the fact that he doesn't have a British voice, maybe, because think about it, he could have picked it off his mum. Was his mum British? Who knows? Oh, by the way. Night guard coffee. Night guard coffee. Mike and Lizzie. Okay, Marco. Alright, buddy.
How we
We're barely halfway through the video, by the way. I've been thinking William understands Remnant, but think about it. The puppet slash Charlie is able to give life to animatronics, but how the fuck did she do it? Let's be real. She's a kid. She's a goat. Oh man, the thing about Charlie, I'm assuming that's the question. That's also another question, okay? What determines when a specific animatronic can give life? Because why Charlie? Why not Golden Freddy? Okay, buddy. So what determines what animatronic gives life? A lot of people could say it's Charlie's nature, but at the same time, who knows? When the hell did she learn all this? You can't just learn it overnight. Yeah, no, exactly. It's really weird. Again, I'm waiting for more insight on Eagle's theory, because I want to understand it, but at the same time, it sort of really doesn't make sense. Because, what's the word? Because, again, he could have just not had the action from his mom. Or, we know William hates his kids, but why would he have cameras and others to check on his kidnapped victim, or in other words, his experiments? Okay, that's a really interesting one. No, it's not canon if he did that. That's a non-canon night. Mike was dead by night 5. There's no way he could have... Why would he creep back into the location the fight entered? Well, that's the thing, though. That's the thing. Because neglectful parenting... This neglectful parenting could have led him to just place the cameras and him just consider that as good enough for him to parent. That's kind of why I'm saying that, as interesting as the theory is, it doesn't fully make any sense, because why would he kidnap a random child, and why would Mike feel guilty about it to the point where he has to apologize to said child? He had to experiment with the high-pitched voice, none other than his kidnapped victim. Yeah, again, it kind of leads in, but at the same time, it's all broken apart by the fact that Mike himself felt guilt. Why would he feel guilt for a complete stranger? That is the question. That is the general question I have. I think it's the animatronic they're close to. Also, favorite animatronics is the security puppet goes on Charlie's body. Okay, so it makes no. I get what determines what animatronics they possess, but what determines what specific set of abilities whatever animatronic has? Like, how can the puppet grant life? You know what I'm saying? How is the puppet able to grant life? How is Well, I'm guessing Golden Freddy's able to be Golden Freddy because Cassidy is angry, and from what I've heard from the general consensus, there's 2 spirits in Golden Freddy. Wait, let me cook. Okay, go for it. Cook. Start cooking. Let her cook. Hello, old sport. Hey, Springtrap. Welcome to the stream, buddy. We're just doing some theorizing and reacting to the FNaF lore here. Never done this reaction stuff before, so I probably kind of suck at it, but yeah, at least I'm trying to do a little bit of discussion time here and there. No, that's not right. There's only one spirit in... No, well, the thing about it is... No, because, again, there's been a general consensus that Dave, or the crying child, ended up in Golden Freddy's body. Okay, Marco. Alright, buddy. The crying child could have been kidnapped as a baby from none other than Henry's other child, Sam. Charlie's twin brother, because he hates Henry and Michael didn't know that they weren't related. Interesting. You said this is from the books, though, right? That's the thing. I am not very knowledgeable on the books, so you kind of have to walk me through this theory a little more, because I'm more like from the game, you know? That crap is too complex. Yeah, no, I'm not reacting to Springtrap's movement formula, Marco. I react to lore videos, but we're not looking at movement and gameplay formula, Marco. I'm trying to think here, though. Related by blood, and Dave is maybe not brought to Fredbridge until an age where he wasn't recognized by Henry. That could make sense. Again, it's because I'd have to read the books to sort of more or less get a proper understanding of how this theory is properly constructed. Like, I could kind of see what you're saying, right? But again, it's like, it's talking about certain characters that I have no idea, I didn't even know existed, because I didn't read the books. And my stream is too boring, you love it. The show and social location, the words, the baby isn't mine. Does William use the mimic to make his son? William did not make the mimic, so that automatically is a no. The mimic is somebody else's creation. I forget his name, but somebody else made the mimic. Alright, we'll do a little bit more discussion because again, we are barely halfway through the video because it isn't his kid. Okay, so yeah, that is an interesting thing to bring up because, like I had mentioned, the show, the Count and his wife or whatever the fuck it's called, the show that the little cutscenes you get at the end of Sister Location Nights, essentially give us a rundown of William's relationship status or the way things went during his relationship. So it makes sense. And his wife is someone telling him that's to stop neglecting his child. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that part's a little easier to follow. Yeah, that part's a little bit easier to follow. There were two souls in Golden Freddy. Well, it is also implied that Cassidy is the stronger spirit as well. But again, it really depends who you ask. It's a really more dependent on who you ask. So my theory understandable? To an extent, I can follow it. Yeah, I can follow your theory. Now, will I fully agree with it? I'd have to read the books to get more context. For now, it's still a no. But I just need more context. But with that being said, we're gonna continue with the theory or with the video here. And then we'll be talking a little more as did I cook? I feel like you cooked just fine. Again, I just need a little more context on the character that you mentioned that was kidnapped, that in your theory would be kidnapped by William.
And so there Afton would sit, hanging on for 30 years, trapped behind the walls with an iron will that refused to die. Most of this is things that we already knew, stuff that's been established and re-established time and time again by the games.
That's a game thing, Marco.
There are two things that
you can't morph lore and game mechanics.
The first and biggest is the placement of sister location, or more specifically, Elizabeth's death. To me, evidence in game seems to suggest that it was meant to come before the crying child's death in 1983. The biggest clue to this is that the crying child saw something. Remember what you saw is the phrase that's repeated over and over again by psychic friend Fredbear, aka William Afton speaking through a walkie-talkie in the Fredbear plushie's stomach.
But then here's the thing where this conflicts, because he would want his child to stay away from Fredbear's if Elizabeth died first, as to not have another loss. By the way, my phone is dying, my face cam is gonna die soon. Fucking hell. Anyways, so that would imply that it's not Mike. Yeah, it's not Mike. But what's the word? It's not Mike, but it's Dave, the crying child that we play as. Or at least to an extent, Dave is mostly the character that we play off. Like I said, Michael could be the headliner some nights, but I would assume Dave is the main headliner because we play as a child that is dying. At least that's what I want to assume. I'd have to explain that theory to Marco, but here we go.
Well, I think we can tell based on how the nightmare animatronics are visualized. They have mouths in their stomachs, just like Baby ripping in half at the waist to swallow a kid. There's also the empty girl's room, one presumably left behind by a dead sister. And lastly, it explains why he's scared, and more specifically, why Afton wants him scared. He needs his kids to stay away from the animatronics. He doesn't.
See, again, this conflicts with what he had just said, where he basically is just where Michael hallucinate through the fucking frequency sounds, where he had the tech to make Michael hallucinate. But at the same time, why would it be Michael? Why would it not be Crying Child to try to keep him away from like again, it's more of a sister location placement kind of thing. That's kind of why this is kind of messy.
Because the last time one of his kids got too close to a robot, his daughter died. That's then why he sets up the nightmares, to scare both Mike and the crying child away from the animatronics from that point forward. That's why books like the Character Encyclopedia outright suggest that we play as the crying child in FNaF 4. That's why he has a nanny cam following the crying child everywhere, so he can keep tabs on his kids when they're out of his sight. He can't let another Elizabeth situation happen. The death of Elizabeth also gives William Afton extra motivation for killing. He's a grieving father. His daughter was taken away from him, so Charlie should die as well. He's
that one makes
lashing
sense.
out at the world after
Yeah, that one
losing
makes
his
sense.
kids. And again, we know that at least one of his children had to have died prior to Charlie's death,
Yeah.
based on the mound of dirt that we see in Midnight Motorist. It also allows circus babies to open and close earlier in the timeline, which is how you wind up with Funtime Foxy appearing as Mangle.
Yes, 5020 is canon, Marco.
Location. Basically, Elizabeth dying
Marco
first
keeps
has
asking about game
everything it
mechanics, for
needs to
God's
fit,
sake.
except for the most important thing.
Why
the
isn't Mike in a
murder
character
weapon.
book?
Why would Afton be
I wouldn't
building
know.
an animatronic with a giant claw in its stomach so early in the timeline? At this point, he just has no motive. It just doesn't make sense prior to 1983. At this point in the story, he hasn't killed anyone, and we know.
You see, like this is kind of where it gets where the timeline itself gets messy. Okay, hold on. Let me actually get my phone. Okay, hold on. Let me actually get my phone. I need to rotate my phone and get my charger because my phone is dying and I want the face cam to keep going for the rest of the stream. Because we're gonna be here. Well, it's already been an hour, yo. An hour, and it's only gonna be 2 hours pretty soon. So if anything, we are struggling. Okay, can I like spin this? No, I can't spin it. I have depression. Okay, I can't spin it. Okay, look, I'm gonna do that. You see that? I'm upside down, yo. Although I may have to turn my camera because now I am upside down, as you can see. And I'm not gonna have you guys look at me from an upside down POV. So here goes. Okay. Okay, there you go. My phone is charging. My face cam is charging. I'm going to fall, and I'm trying not to fall because my coffee will fall, and that will burn. Okay, look, I'm upside down. Hey guys, I'm fucking Spider-Man. When Mike has daddy issues, I charged my phone, but I was busy. Hey guys, I'm Spider-Man. Look at me. I'm fucking Spider-Man, yo. You could actually see my little map. Hold on, can I actually make that little thing disappear? I cannot. What is blocking my camera? Okay, it's whatever's there is blocking my camera. I don't know what it is. It's I think that's the most I can do it. Okay. Don't you L me, Marco. Get out. Get out. You're fired. You're fired. That's my capture card. Okay, so let's give this a little bit of a rotation. Whoop. There you go. Hey, I'm not upside down no more. Hi guys. That better? I have unupside downed myself. I am not. I'm back to normal. Well, I'd have to move my camera though. But that's the thing, because it's kind of like straining the charger. So what if I move it here? But then I can't see shit because the lens is right there. Fucking hell. Hello. Yep, hello. We're having issues with the camera. Hold on. We're having camera issues. Fuck. Sorry, my side said error. Oh, you're good. It's alright. Get another job. Hey, you're fired. Alright. Alright. And once the thing is charged back to normal, we will actually resume operation normally. Because we are upside down and I had to kind of mess with the camera a little bit, you know? Here it goes. Okay, where were we?
For a fact that the missing children's incident is 1985. So Elizabeth's death coming before any of those events just doesn't work.
1990. Okay, sister location is 1990. But some events happening in the late 1980s. That is my theory.
Hence why I placed it where I did in the narrative timeline. Afton's death here is also a bit tricky. We know that he returned to the FNaF 1 location to break down the original animatronics in order to harvest their remnant. We know that he melts down 5 things to become one thing. Candy Cadet makes that very clear. So the 5 things are the 5 endoskeletons from the various animatronics. That would be totally fine if it weren't for one huge problem. On his 5th visit to the pizzeria, Afton gets spring locked.
He dies.
So either the 5 becoming 1 starts in 1993, but then finishes 30 years later when he reemerges from the wall to add the last endoskeleton to his
how does that
pile,
make
or
sense?
he's had himself some reason to return to the original location after harvesting all the stuff that he can. It's not ideal. but
I'd
it's the one
say
angle
that one
makes
makes
the
more
most
sense.
William
Yeah, that one
still
makes more
wasn't
sense.
back. Weird. Michael knew his father sometimes traveled for work, disappearing for
How
days
would the
on
lore work
end,
if
but
every game was
usually there
actually an
some
actual
sort of
sequel?
notice,
It would not,
phone call,
at all.
Post-it, something. It's not
Wouldn't
like
make
Michael and
sense.
his father were close, far from it. But as a household of two suffering men coping with years of tragedy and loss, there was at least some element of communication between the two of them. They were united by a name and a shared pain. This time, though, things felt different. William had left nothing. His absence was longer. There were no check-ins, no updates, just silence. Something had happened.
Yeah.
If there was one thing Michael knew about his father, it was that he had contingencies, safety checks,
That could have
backup
happened.
plans.
He
His father
didn't.
was
He
a
didn't.
careful
He
and
kind of
guarded
just.
man. He held his cards close to his
Kinda
chest.
just threw
and
it
such.
out.
William had prepared him in the
Kinda
event
Mike
that
hates
something
his
like this
dad.
ever happened. Normally, his father kept his home office locked.
Yeah,
In the
he.
event of an
It
unexpected
sort of led to him
prolonged
hating his
absence,
father.
Michael
A lot
had
of
been
the events led him to
instructed
hating his
enter
father.
his father's office and look behind an empty set of shelves mounted in the corner of the room. Rolling his eyes, Michael entered the office. Never fully understood how William was able to spend so many hours of his days locked up in here. There was just nothing to do. Most of this place was empty. He dragged himself over to the shelf in the corner, expecting to find an emergency contact list, a family safety deposit box. But what he actually found there was completely unexpected.
Father, it's me.
Michael. He found it.
I found it. It was right where you said it would be.
The shelf swung open and revealed a giant industrial elevator. One that
Okay. Stop right there. Stop. Here's the question. How the fuck do you not hear a giant elevator going off in your house? Are you... And some of these characters aren't very smart when you think about it, because how do you not hear an elevator go off? I had to look lower to look at the camera. I don't know if you guys know that. I had to look lower. I had to go... It's weird. Michael! For how much Mike is presented in both games and lore, we don't really know that much about him. And that's the thing. That's what keeps us interested in a character. That is a good approach to mystery. Because if you give us all the answers, people lose interest in the lore. Because you basically have all of your answers. The moment, like, when... Soundproof goes mad. Yeah, he had some hardcore soundproofing. But when you have a game or any piece of media, right, that has lore, and part of whether it's all of it or it's part of it that's shrouded in mystery, people are more engaged to make theories about it or to think or to ask questions than, yeah, this happened exactly. Here is an entire timeline of it. And people, basically, you would kill a franchise or you would kill a story if you would just give the lore straightforward. You would give the entire timeline. How do you fit a whole pizzeria? I'm pretty sure... Was that a pizzeria? I don't know. I don't think it's a pizzeria. I'm pretty sure that was more of a storage unit for his robots. Could be wrong, though.
Into an underground bunker. But that was impossible. Hidden inside his childhood home was a secret entrance to an enormous underground science lair? It didn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's more of a lair.
Seriously, it didn't make any sense. And yet, here it was, mapped directly underneath the floor plan of the house that he
If he
hit
his kids are one for trying to find it, it's like, you got some great kids, because I'll go find it.
Yep. Known his father, a prideful, sad, angry man with petty, everyday problems, but clearly he'd been living with a stranger this entire time. His father had secrets. Suddenly, the days of William being locked inside of his office made sense. He'd been here the entire time. Where was...
It's still
here,
big, so I count it as big. Okay, it makes sense.
Entertainment and rentals? The Circus Baby restaurant always did seem to be a deeply personal project for father. A failure of his that cut unusually deep, especially after that first location had to be closed prematurely due to the gas leaks. After that day, father really did seem to change, to lose himself even more in his work. Clearly, the entrance he had found was some sort of secret back way into the facility, one that required crawling through vents to navigate. His father had been working here, but in secret. Why? And that's when he found her. At the end of the facility, Circus Baby, his father's pride and joy. Except something was different about her. She wasn't like the others. The way she talked, the stories she told. This wasn't just a robot. She was alive somehow. And not only was she alive, she also felt familiar.
There is something bad inside of me. I'm broken. I can't be fixed. Will you help me?
That's what makes Baby's character very interesting. I'm gonna actually pause here. It makes her very different from most of the animatronics because she is very human. Now, you could say it's because the soul possessed her and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, it's like the way she deceives the player or the player's character, the way she basically leads them on. It's not robotic or artificial or something you can easily program into a machine. The way it naturally comes out, it's very human. So to say that Baby essentially evolved into something after Elizabeth possessed her is wild because, again, she became extremely human. She became something. She basically became a bridge between humanity and human and machine. She became in my opinion, the middle point because she essentially ended up. What's the word? Nah. She learned it from her father. Yeah, she basically took the example her father set. As much of a joke as this is actually a legitimate point. She saw how her father acted. Her father is a dick. Okay, so while it's not mentioned in the video, it's most likely to assume that William Afton was a known liar. Well, actually, technically, by the escaping the charges and shit, he is a known liar. But she didn't know that he got all the killing, you know? So she learns how to be manipulative through William. And actually, towards the end of Pizza Sim, she's trying to make him proud. Trying to do the exact same thing that he's been doing. So essentially, Baby, now in Sister Location, she's more like she wants out and it makes sense, but she becomes more twisted as time progresses. They should have made Circus Baby more in game. It's kind of disappointing to see Misha is presented as the main character. Yeah, it's kind of like Freddy, where he barely appears in the first game, and it's not really a big deal because it's just another mechanic. But at the same time, it's like the thing again. Like I said, the thing about Baby is that Baby is extremely human after being possessed. She has essentially become the bridge between humanity and machinery. So, Circus Baby herself should have been William's peak. The pinnacle of William's creations. I say creations because obviously this Circus Baby being possessed was unintentional. Was Circus Baby because he never perfected like Remnant or animatronic. Controlled by Ray. He never perfected that. He never did. So at the end of the day, I'm sure how much William left his kid shows him how much. Yeah, exactly. It also shows Baby wanting to make him proud. Shows considering that Baby was still a kid. Keep on because Michael was able to move on past that and able to focus on trying to stop his father, right? But Baby was still a child. She died a kid. So considering that she wants her father's attention this much, it's still in her nature because she never got to grow up. Michael did. Michael, by the time Sister Location happens, in my mind, he is already grown up. He's already come to despise his father for the despicable man he is, and he wants to kind of find answers. And after Sister Location, he vows to find them. Essentially meaning he vows to find and stop him, leading to the events of FNaF 3, which obviously is him trying to basically find anything cluing into his father, which he finds him. But yeah, exactly. She's William's masterpiece. Except the thing about William is that he never fully acknowledged her when he was too obsessed with the others, Ballora, Freddy, Funtime Freddy, etc. He was too enthralled with trying to find more life when the answers to all of his questions were right there. They were there. Continue.
His sister? William's baby girl? But how? Why? What was this place? He dug around some old files and found blueprints outlining the features of these animatronics. Storage containers, voice mimicking, parental tracking. And was that a child in Freddy's stomach? Was his father collecting and experimenting on kids? Were all the rumors that he'd heard throughout his past actually true? That the animatronics came to life at night? That there were murders done in all the pizzerias? That his father had somehow been the prime suspect?
Yeah, this Sister Location, again, like I said, Marco's determination in Sister Location comes from the fact that he finds all of this information and he basically pieces it together. He realizes that not only the death of his brother, well, his brother is his fault, but the death of his sister and countless other innocent kids, including Charlie Emily, is William's fault. Can we agree that William's a stupid man at times? We can.
His mind flashed back to his persistent nightmares.
Okay, here's the thing. I don't think William is stupid. I think William is too ambitious for his own good. His ambition got him sprint locked. Okay, his ambition got him sprint locked and killed. His ambition got him nearly killed at FNaF 3 because he came back and upon realizing that it's Michael, he tries to kill Michael. He has that ambition to kill him, and his ambition ultimately gets him trapped in a purgatorial hell for the rest of his days, which means forever. after fucking Pizza Sim. So he could have run away from all these. He understands how to make him. Yeah, exactly.
Experimented on too? Tears stung in his eyes as anger, fear, and confusion filled his
Now, the
mind.
fact that
His
Baby never
father's
turned on him is
secrets were
baffling.
pouring out. William wasn't just a lame, overworked father. He was a monster,
Yeah.
toying with life itself. Suddenly, everything clicked. He frantically looked around the room, blinking human heads on poles staring back at him. Green eyes, his sister. Blue eyes, his brother. Closed eyes, his mom. All just staring expectantly. These were meant to be
Shit.
human. William was working
That's a
down here
good way of
trying
putting
to
things.
make believable humans, literally rebuilding the family that they had both lost. The small little girl robots with their British accents roaming the hallways of this underground facility suddenly took on a whole new context.
Hello in there. Is it the same person?
Were those meant to be his sister? A replacement for her? A clone? Was William building clones of his sister? They seemed to know him, after all, to react to his presence.
They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
He always did have a bit of a resemblance to his father. Michael's mind reeled as the reality of his world crumbled to
It makes
dust.
sense.
No,
Okay, it
no,
makes
he
it
had
makes sense that they think it's William because it's been a few years, and again, it's been stated in multiple mediums that Michael and William do resemble one another. Does this imply that Michael was always ugly too? Poor Michael, man. He was ugly as hell.
If this really was his sister, heck, if any of these things were human souls,
Imagine
whatever
a Lizzie
remnant of the
army.
humans that they once were, they
Shit.
needed to be rescued.
They always put us back inside. There's nowhere for us to hide here.
Led by the voice of Circus Baby, he marched through the now empty halls of the Funtime Auditorium. He would lead them. He would protect them.
Marco.
And finally, he would be able to forgive himself for the killing of his brother so many years.
Yeah. Okay. You see, the manipulation of Michael Afton works perfectly with how he portrayed him here. Michael Afton wanting to right his wrongs for what he did to his brother and not being able to be there for his sister after finding out that his dad is a fucking psychopath makes sense. I'd also been told Mike was a handsome man by the art community. Yeah, but the art community also made Afton to be one of the most handsome people on the planet, so if he looked like William, and in lore, it's been directly stated that William himself was ugly, Mike wasn't much to look at either. That is my assumption. But where was I? Oh, yeah. So here's the thing though. Think about it. Is it things that the Circus Baby is created to look like her, that she's committed to her father since she sees all of this as her. Okay, I like that. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that implication. That's a good implication. Thumbs up to you. I like that. I like how you have the Batman movie in the watch list. It's not even. It's a random ass video. Yeah, it's a random ass video. Oh. Hey guys, we should react to the Call of Duty zombie storyline one day. That was gonna be a doozy though. That was way too fucking long. That one, I will probably be walking you guys through it if we actually get to it. But we're focusing on FNaF. Today's FNaF. Okay, we're not doing zombies today. Today's FNaF. Anyways, it makes sense. Oh shit! It makes sense that Baby, again, being more human than machine, saw that Michael was by the fifth night was determined to help them because he realized that his father was, you know, a piece of shit, and what's the word? And she used that against them. She manipulated him, leading them into the scooping room, and essentially escaping her way by killing Michael. Will you react to analog horror? Who knows? No, tomorrow's Call of Duty, Marco.
Hurts for a moment.
Scooper, that violent extraction arm? Michael had seen that one in the pile of blueprints. Something about heat rendering the magical silver metal inside useless. In reality, prior to getting himself spring-locked and put behind the wall, William's methods had become increasingly sophisticated, with a mechanized arm that could infuse new bodies with a soul. William could finally give and take away life. The only thing he needed were the bodies. But William wasn't
My
the only
canon
one
Mike is a
looking for
handsome man by
bodies,
the
as Michael
8-bit
was
models.
about to learn.
But if we looked like you...
Okay. How about this, okay? A little middle ground. What if William's body and appearance is a physical manifestation of what he looks like as a person? Meanwhile, Mike, like, while he has a similar appearance to William, ends up looking less decrepit because, one, he seems to be a more righteous person, so he takes on that more, like, righteous, like, that cleaner appearance. While William, again, his skin is pale, crooked teeth, you know, bad hair, all the stuff, you know?
Could hide.
Don't you, like, unlock...
If we looked like...
Marco, That is game mechanics, Marco. And the blueprints are lore tidbits, so it makes sense for Mike to find them. Dude, I was joking. I don't know, man. I like the sound of it.
Michael was gonna be the hero to help these animatronics, all right. He was gonna help the haunted tubes and wires of these animatronics escape, just not the way that he anticipated. His sister had lied to him. Another game of pretend. The scooper plowed forward, digging its extraction arm into his body. As he heard his bones ripping through his flesh, Michael blacked out.
But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not.
Where could he even find the blueprints? Probably in the exit to the elevator, the room he's first in. I feel like he could have found them there. Potentially.
For the next several months, Michael's life was not his own. He was forced to comply with the tangle of wires and spirits that lived inside of him. His body felt like an overfilled balloon begging to burst as day by day, week by week, his flesh began to sag and discolor. He was a walking, talking, rotting corpse, alive, but wishing
that's how he slowly looks more like William,
while
like
he did
actual
his best to conceal his fate, there was only so much a man filled with robot spaghetti could do. The entity in his innards would eventually leave, but by that point, the damage had been done. His decaying flesh stank, turning him into a literal purple guy. But still, even with no bones, even with rotting purple flesh and begging to die, Michael continued to live. That silvery metal remnant injected by the scooper meant that he couldn't die. His anger also refused to die. What he had seen down there in his sister's location had rocked him to his core. His father had killed and captured dozens. His experiments had killed his sister and then tortured him.
That's where British teeth. That's where he starts to like his main not tired, but his mission to find his father starts. You know, now that he's able to move on his own and do things his own way, his mission to find the kids or to find his father, I should say.
I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you.
See, that's his vow.
Michael had to correct for the sins of his father. He had to make things right. Michael would burn Fazbear Entertainment to the ground. I mean, what else could you do when your skin was permanently purple? Michael's strategy was simple. He would apply for night security guard positions at the old defunct pizzeria locations. That way, no one ever had to see him or smell him during his shift. And all these old shuttered locations did need guards. Teenage vandals and squatters were always looking to get inside these abandoned buildings, and yet no one ever really wanted to work an overnight graveyard shift unless they were practically out of options. Enter Mike. One by one, he would take on the job of security guard.
Can we appreciate that Mike is a silent pro tag and like the I like the silent pro tag thing. Like the thing about it, he's not fully silent, but we don't get him talking in gameplay. We only get him in lore bits, cutscenes. That's the only way we get him to talk. And I think was it only like one cutscene that he talks in? Because I don't think he talks in Pizza Sim, but it's him in Pizza Sim.
With the animatronics and figure out how they worked, writing about his experiences in his security logbook. While there, he would listen to the old tapes where upper management awkwardly welcomed new recruits to their summer jobs, even though he was working there nowhere near the summer months. He heard the gory details of his father's franchise from the outsiders looking in, confused and afraid about
I like how they got the lore bit of what specific month he worked in or what period of time he worked in because of the check. That is actually really neat. Fritz plays custom night 1020 is
what was happening in the walls around them. Sometimes
Okay. Here's the thing, okay? I want to assume every night I think the only game I want to assume that every single night is sort of it like the games progress like the story would. The animatronics are slowly progressively getting more aggressive. FNaF 2 is the more clear indicator of this, where they become more erratic, as stated by Foam Guy. They become more aggressive, so it makes sense that the aggression is piling up. Now, will 1020 be canon? Who knows? It could just be night 6 being the last night, but who knows?
Brother in the form of the Golden Freddy suit. It's me appearing on the walls around him. Except now, there was something else there. He was no longer alone. Another
You see? Look. It's Dave. Look. You see, whoever said that there's only one soul. Look, right there. Look. He, and this guy knows what he's talking about more so than me. Look. You see that shit? Okay.
Whose spirits were forced to share the same body. And Golden Freddy would attack him now. It was aggressive. Its vengeance wanted to lash out at anyone with the Afton name. Anyone who wore a security guard outfit. Over time, Mike worked his way through the old restaurants. The original pizzeria, the bigger, better Freddy Fazbear's.
Yes.
He spent weeks there looking for clues as to his father's whereabouts. And each time at the end of his week shift, he would then set the location on fire. Remnant can't survive high temperature.
Now, Now it makes sense. It makes sense, right? But I would assume night 6 is the night Mike works, but it also doesn't make sense because Jeremy gets the night 6 shift. So how would Mike ever have worked there? You know what I'm saying? FNaF 2's location doesn't fit in this. I want to say because the location by this point was already decommissioned. The location is gone. It's closed down. There's nothing. Animatronics decommissioned. All of it gone. So, if anything, I really don't know where FNaF 2 would fall in this. I don't know. This one's actually a head scratcher.
After all, so burning away whatever spirit-laden
game theory could be wrong. Yeah, I know. That's kind of why we have discussions.
All this revisiting of his past, though, was causing the nightmares to begin again. Hallucinations that brought him back to
their
his
besties,
childhood.
no argument.
The
Oh
guilt
yeah.
Around killing his brother. His dreams were oddly.
FNaF 2 doesn't get burnt down either. Yeah, exactly. FNaF 2 doesn't get burnt down either. Like I said, it gets shut down. It gets decommissioned along with everything inside it. With the only thing surviving being the withered animatronics and Fredbear / Golden Freddy and Springtrap. Those are essentially the only 3 things surviving. Yeah, FNaF's 3 and 6 and Security Breach gets burnt down. Yeah, exactly. Anything else doesn't, so it doesn't make sense.
Security guards. But it would all be worth it in the end. The goal was to eventually stumble across the one location, the one job that would finally reunite him with his father. Little did Mike know that day would come sooner than he expected. 2023, an advertisement came across Mike's TV. Fazbear Frights, a new horror attraction inspired by
Look at the little ad, I love it.
Occurred around Freddy Fazbear's Pizza so many years ago. It made Mike sick. People looking to make a quick buck off the tragedy of others, off his own family. This wasn't a joke or entertainment. Regardless, he had to be a part of it. If this team was combing through his family's history, they might stumble across something that could be useful. And if his father was truly still alive as he suspected, there would be no way that he wouldn't show up.
Unfortunately for you, Mike, you're
Finally,
half
this could
right.
be the final chapter in his family's marathon of tragedy. Mike applied for the job and was immediately handed the keys. Years of doing this had taught him that security guards rarely receive thorough security checks. They also liked how creepy Mike looked. They thought it was a costume
The ad.
on theme for the job.
Yeah, the
but little they
emoji.
knew.
Hey, glad you came back for another night. I promise it'll be a lot more interesting this time.
For weeks, there was nothing. But just as Mike considered giving up, he received the call that he'd been
Yeah,
waiting
no,
for
it makes sense that he's been there for quite a bit because the first call is basically re-welcoming him back and telling him, hey, welcome, thank you for coming back. So it makes sense that FNaF 3 Night 1 isn't his first night there. Now, whether he's worked weeks there, I wouldn't know, but it at least makes sense that he worked at least 1 week. Can you do William Afton emote live on stream? What's that? What's that emote? What, don't me to...
Could this finally be him? Sure enough, there he was. William inside his iconic golden Bonnie Springlock suit, only now it was green and decaying with age. And there they were, a small family of broken men finally reunited. It's been a long time. Mike had always struggled with the phantoms of his past haunting him, but now all the animatronics he'd encountered over the past months, hopping from pizzeria to pizzeria, suddenly sprang to life. Their
little Hasbullah. Fuck you, Hasbullah.
Keep track of his father on the cameras. It would seem that William's mere presence had put the spirits on high alert. Ultimately, they were harmless, more annoying than anything else, but there was one that felt different from the others. One that was more than just a mere phantom. The security puppet. If he looked at the cameras at just the right moment, he could see it floating there through the halls. He could even see its reflection in the water pooled on the ground. It would seem like he wasn't the only one there on a mission. While he was dealing with Springtrap, Michael assumed that this one was likely dealing with the spirits of this place, finally setting them to rest. Hopefully this means a happy day for all of us. Mike.
Stop. This makes sense, okay? This is how the good ending itself makes sense. The puppet being the only main remaining animatronic, because the other ones have been destroyed, as you remember. Gotta swallow that Oreo. But with the animatronics destroyed, the puppet being the only one left makes sense. It was never explicitly stated that the puppet was destroyed. It was decommissioned. Okay? Just like the FNaF 2 animatronics, the security puppet decommissioned, left in its box, left to rot. Now, when considering that FNaF 3 location, Fazbear Frights, collecting, they were collecting a lot of stuff and mementos from a lot of other places. Bye-bye. Bye, Eagly. You gotta go? Alright, well, thank you for stopping by, Eagly. We still got a long way to go. No, don't apologize. It's okay. Thank you for stopping by. It was nice discussing theaters with you. But, okay. Hear me out, Marco, because you... But, so... one of those things they could have collected was the decommissioned security puppet. And upon basically kind of like what's Pizza Sim, upon having all the souls in one place, instead of giving them life this time, the security puppet wants to release them, as that way they don't suffer any longer. This is why the main cast don't appear in any way, shape, or form. The only thing close to the main cast that reappears is William. William himself is the only quote-unquote original remaining, because everything else happened after the original 4 were murdered. Be halfway there. Yeah, we got a long way to go. I told you this one would be a long one.
He felt the air around him release, like pressure being let out of a bottle. The building sighed, as if 5 spirits had finally been allowed to move on. He had the sense that his brother was a part of them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why Cassidy remains, and Cassidy is able to continue being vengeful. Dave, I keep forgetting his name. I'm tempted to call him Evan, but it's Dave. Dave gets released during the events at FNaF 3's Good Ending. Dave, along with the other 4 original animatronics, just Gabriel, Fritz, Susie, and the 4th guy, whatever the fuck his name was, those 5 get released during the burning of Fazbear's Frights. The puppet releases them before Fazbear's Frights burns down, and the puppet goes into hiding until the events of fucking Five Nights at Freddy's Pizza Sim. Because you gotta remember, the puppet is present there. You're going to? Alright, Marco.
The dry, desiccated walls erupted in flames.
Thank you for stopping by, man. You have a good day.
Finished. Except, it was not. Somehow, through sheer force of will, Afton remained. He had survived, and Mike would need to find a new way of finishing off his father. Luckily, the solution would present itself later that year. Not from Mike, but from another victim that had been left in his father's
Henry.
We're talking about becoming a Fazbear Entertainment franchisee. Restaurant ownership and management. Something almost anyone can do with a limited degree of success. You are now the face of the newly rebranded Freddy Fazbear's
Yeah, I'm the new face of Freddy Fazbear's
Fazbear
Pizza.
Entertainment as a brand had been closed for years. William had been stuck in a suit and a wall. The only person who legally could bring the franchise back was Henry, but he'd largely pulled out of the franchise around the time of his father's disappearance. Yeah. Something was up. Surely this had to be some kind of a trick, right? Mike.
It's like I said, this is Henry doing what the puppet had hoped would happen in FNaF 3. Gathering whatever, but this is Henry finishing his daughter's job. Gathering whatever remained in one place. That way, once it smells like rain, by the way. It is raining outside, but gathering everything that was left into one place for one final showdown. Finally, putting everything to rest if things went right.
Doing what he did best, applied for a franchise, and immediately got the job. There was just one thing out of the ordinary. Paragraph 4.
If you are playing this tape, that means that not only have you been checking outside at the end of every shift, as you were instructed to do, but also that you have found something that meets the criteria of your special obligations under paragraph 4.
See, this is where Henry's plan comes into play. By having something open under the Fazbear name, okay, I haven't stated what his plan was, but by having something open under the Fazbear name, it would attract certain individuals. Michael Afton, Scrap Baby, Molten Freddy, Willy Boy, and of course, the puppet. Now, Henry was expecting for Charlie to make a comeback. That's why he created Lefty, a animatronic designed specifically to capture the puppet. Lefty is an acronym. I do forget what the acronym is, but it was basically meant to capture the puppet.
No employment contract he'd ever signed required him to keep special lookout for independently moving animatronics outside the restaurant. Now he knew something was up here. Henry was luring them all back. Rather than trying to go to them, like Mike had done for years, Henry was doing the opposite. He was putting them all under the same roof. He was finishing them off for good. Mike knew this wasn't meant to be a restaurant. It was meant to be a prison, a containment vessel, a locked box, meant to trap them all in so they could finally end the madness. It took a few nights, but eventually everyone was there. His father, the puppet, the robot spaghetti that had...
And keep in mind, you are constantly reminded about Saturday. Saturday being night 6, you're constantly reminded, don't forget about Saturday, we need them all in one place. Meaning that Henry had set a specific deadline because he didn't want any further harm to go to anyone. He didn't want anyone else to suffer by the likes of, at the hands of William Afton. So, basically, and considering that there wasn't a whole lot of them left upon leading them there. Now, you may say, what about Cassidy? I mean, it probably would have been under assumption that Cassidy would have been freed. I don't know. He would, like, they wouldn't know, right?
once violated his body, and his sister, now hopelessly devoted to serve the man that had once gotten her killed.
Yeah,
This
you
time,
see?
He had been instructed to seal the doors and leave, but while he locked everything down, he didn't move on. If this was truly meant to be the end, if the remnant needed to be washed away,
Saturday, just make it to Saturday. Everyone with a job.
And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing
Not intended for you.
Although there
Although
was
there
a
was
way
a way
out
out,
planned
time for you.
I
I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right what you want to be.
And to you monsters trapped in the corridors,
Be still.
and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you,
I believe there's peace, and perhaps more waiting for you and the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
And with that, it was over. The Afton legacy died with all of them
Yep.
trapped inside of a literal box. As the flames danced around the office, Mike, for the first time in decades, was happy.
At
But William
peace.
wasn't gone yet. Although the darkest pit of hell was open and waiting for him, something or someone wouldn't allow him to move on.
Yep.
Instead, he found
Bowl
himself
cut.
locked in moments from his past. The pizzeria, his son's room, his underground bunker. It was as if his brain's neurons were all firing at once, overloaded, mixing and matching all his biggest fears, regrets, failures. What was this place? How did he
Welcome
keep
to hell.
called out into the silence? Then they started coming. Without warning,
One
animatronics,
by
both
one.
new and old, began to jump out at him, bite him, rip him limb from limb. The pain was immeasurable. Make it stop. Make it stop. William, for the first time, longed for death, an end to this
But
torture.
Cassidy is just
as it
there
felt like he
watching.
couldn't take
Cassidy's
it
just
anymore.
like-
Everything was quiet again. It was as if the world had been reset. There was a brief moment of quiet, and then the onslaught began again. Dozens of faces from his past, all focused on
All
him.
resetting.
A waking nightmare that he couldn't
Yep.
escape from. More pain.
So basically, if you play UCN, anytime you die, that's canon, by the way. Because that's basically because you die, and then Cassidy will just restart everything. Restart you from zero, making you suffer again and again and again. Because you are, in UCN, you're playing as William. So Cassidy's main thing is to make William suffer for the violent death that he gave her. So this is her way of repaying that.
More ripping. It was his own personal hell, but why? Why couldn't he just die? And then he saw them, a group of characters he never thought he'd see again. Those janky, stolen characters that had started everything. The mediocre melody.
Now, for those that didn't play UCN, the mediocre melodies have a specific line when they kill you where you can hear a child whispering, and also they're not themselves. They're talking. Basically, they're talking and saying a bunch of stuff that the character themselves wouldn't say. I think he will probably. I'm assuming he's going to. What's the word? He's going to.
It had all started to go wrong once they showed up.
He's
Once
going to
Henry
start.
made them. But
He's going to
mixed in
have
with their
the voice lines
obnoxious
there.
Southern drawls, William heard something else. It was barely a whisper, but he could just make out the words.
He tried to release you. He tried to release us. But I'm not gonna let that happen. I will hold you here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
That voice. He knew that
That's
voice.
Cassidy.
But from
See,
where?
that's Cassidy.
The one he shouldn't have killed. William thought
Cassidy.
that. He'd done a lot of awful things, but there was always the one that stood out. Not Charlie, his drunken act of revenge. Not Susie, his first true murder. No. Instead, it was the one that he had lost control with. The one that he had broken beyond repair for no good reason other than because he could. The one that he'd stuffed inside the golden bear that his partner used to wear. Cassidy. They were back, and now they were trying to punish him, to make him suffer like he'd made them suffer. It was almost like William and Cassidy's souls had been locked together, fused by a collective rage and spite. Each refusing to move on. But while Cassidy was so focused on taking revenge, they actually did the one thing that would be the downfall for so many others. They kept William alive. Even though fire should have destroyed the remnant that was coursing through his being, Cassidy kept William breathing, paving the way for his escape. William's will was so strong, his soul so powerful that he managed to put a part of himself inside the circuitry that housed the spring-locked suit. And there,
See, this part's
consciousness
stupid.
lay
This is
inside
what
a
I don't
single
like.
circuit board, waiting for someone to find him and set him free. A person that no one would suspect.
Okay, so here's the thing though. I don't think he infused himself into the circuitry, but that is not William. That is a cyberized copy of William. It is essentially William's backup. So that is not our actual William. The actual William is in hell forever. So Cassidy didn't keep him alive in the suit. but more so kept his soul from ever moving on past the past like purgatory into the afterlife. That is the hell that Henry has stated. Of course, Henry didn't anticipate for the hell to be his past, haunting him for the rest of his, for the rest of existence. But the digitized Afton is basically, for me, I like to believe the digitized Afton is just a digital copy of William's consciousness due to Remnant essentially infusing with the motherboard of the Spring Bonnie hybrid animatronic, because remember, it was a hybrid suit / animatronic model. Once the circuitry was fused, once it fused with the circuitry, it essentially just it made a backup of William's consciousness.
You might have noticed that I was vague about the dates, and there's a good reason for that. I don't know them. There is
but yeah, me neither. Nobody does.
Here's what I do know. We know with a high amount of certainty that Michael Afton is the character that we play as up until Ultimate Custom Night. Mike Schmidt and Fritz Smith, the security guards for FNAF 1 and FNAF 2 respectively, get fired for, quote, tampering with the animatronics and odor. So weird connection between the two of them, right? But now, look at the phantom animatronics that are haunting us in FNAF 3. They use models from both FNAF 1 and FNAF 2, meaning whoever is sitting in that security guard chair, Fazbear Frights, they have to have seen both locations and their animatronics. And that's not all. Their designs are burnt. It's a weird detail in the game, and it's something that the character encyclopedia repeatedly calls attention to. The burned texture for these phantom animatronics. Why is that so unusual, though? Fazbear Frights is the first time in the franchise that we hear about anything burning down. From that point on in the story, it's like the characters turn pyro and are suddenly setting fires left and right. But for the first 3 games, nothing ever catches fire. The animatronics are just moved or repurposed in some way. So when did they burn? And why would our security guards see them as being burned? Someone has to have been going location to location, setting these places on fire, purging the sins of the past.
But here's the thing, that doesn't fully make sense. Because, again, FNAF 2 was decommissioned. Now, I know this is outdated, but FNAF 2 was decommissioned, so this one doesn't make sense.
We know we're definitely playing as Mike and Sister Location in FNAF 6 based on the in-game dialogue. And in FNAF 4, there's an Easter egg where we can hear the phone call from Night 1 of FNAF 1, meaning that whoever's in that bedroom has heard the recording as a security guard. We also know that Mike has seen the nightmare animatronics based on his drawings in the security logbook. So overall, there is solid evidence that connects all of FNAFs 1 through 6. You'll also notice how the character encyclopedia doesn't have a page for Mike Afton. This thing has a page for Chocolate Bunny Bonnie, but not Michael? Some tells me they don't want us to confirm how many games he's been in, because that would confirm too much of the theory.
You see, it's kind of what I was telling Marco. If you take something or a character shrouded in mystery and just give us the answers like that, you kill off whatever intrigue was around that character. Specifically for Michael, if this were to happen for Michael, basically a lot of the franchise just, you know what I'm saying? Gone. Because Michael is basically the pace of this franchise. You play as this guy for a good portion of the games. So if you take out the mystery that is Michael Afton and connect the games properly, essentially you're just, the lore's gone.
Sure, this gives us an incredibly compelling and complete narrative. Mike as our protagonist and William, his father, as our antagonist. Mike accidentally kills his brother in Fredbear's mouth, which begins our story and sets William down his pathway of destruction. Mike is then haunted by the guilt of his past and is looking to make things right across the rest of the games. In Sister Location, he learns what his father's been up to and realizes what he has to do to correct it. After failing to finish the job in FNAF 3, he ultimately helps Henry end it all in FNAF 6. It is great. It is a clean narrative.
Yeah, and it makes sense that they never met because of the one line he said. But that he tells Michael that he found a job listing not intended for him. But at the same time, Henry also kind of realized, maybe Henry realized that it was Michael, but there is a chance they never improperly interacted. So Henry maybe at some point believed that it wasn't Michael, but at the same time, once he realized it was him, that's kind of why he said he believes that Michael's exactly where he's at. Or where he wants to be.
One problem, timing. Mike's quest can't really start until he's been down to Sister Location, seen Baby, and gotten himself scooped. That's when he finds out about Afton's secret life. It's also when he's gonna start to smell, because, you know, he's a walking, talking, rotting corpse. And we know that he's not going down into the bunker until the Funtime animatronics have been made, Freddy's has been closed, and Afton is out of the picture. That all should be happening post-1993, after William is sealed behind a wall.
I'm pretty sure that's what I had said. It's post-1993, or in the 1990s. Now, there's the problem though. FNAF 1 takes place in 1993. So what I had said earlier is that Sister Location, by a stretch, could most likely take place in 91. In 1991 would be the latest sister location could take place.
Afton has already dismantled the original animatronics
Yeah.
that we see in the FNaF 3 minigames. How are those things getting burned if they're already deconstructed? But more importantly, we see FNaF 2 paychecks with the date 1987. That is way earlier than I think it can be. To be fair, Fritz Smith's pink slip on night 7 doesn't have a date, but it's a bit weird to say that the first few nights are in 1987, and then employee number 3 is hired on years after the restaurant closes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. Like the original FNaF timeline is messy.
There is no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity.
All debts have been paid, all assets redistributed. The company was outright dissolved. Even the memories of the horrors that had happened there started to fade away in the public consciousness. The people were gone too. William was dead. Henry was gone. A whole generation of young Emilys and Aftons had lost their lives to the horrors of the pizzeria. All of them collateral damage to the man in the bunny suit.
Oh, that scares me. That looks
Everyone the company
psychopathic.
had ever
Very good
touched
imagery.
was dead and gone.
Mm-hmm. Unless.
Well, all except one.
Pay your child support, you deadbeat! I'm keeping the diamond ring. I also set the house on fire!
Clara Afton. She'd been there in the early days, back when things with William were
Was she?
good.
I don't
They'd had
know.
the
I
perfect
think it's
home,
implied that
thriving
he,
business,
that
the ideal
Afton got to
family,
her
but
too.
shortly after their
But-
youngest son died, things
I don't
started to change. William had become distant, lost in his work, obsessive. She had watched him change from this irritatingly brilliant man that she had fallen in love with to a drunken monster struggling to hold himself together. And despite her trying to reach out to him in those desperate days, he was just too far gone.
Okay, so the thing about it is, this is the part that's confusing me because I think I've seen multiple implications that she was also killed by William, but at the same time, I don't know. It's because it doesn't fit in the timeline, bro. It's very weird. It's a very weird niche little detail.
You wanted to let me in.
For her sake, she had to leave the relationship, and from there, she largely faded into obscurity. A mystery from William's past, a footnote in his history, and that was fine for her. She wanted to leave that part of her life behind. She tried to move forward, never wanting to hear the name Freddy Fazbear again, a time defined by mistakes and broken promises. But then, the paperwork started to arrive. As Fazbear Entertainment began to close as a corporate entity, suddenly her mail was flooded with notifications, requests, obligations. She had been there since the beginning, helping William in the early days of his business, and now, as a shareholder and sole living member of the Afton family, all copyrights and trademarks of both Afton Robotics and Fazbear
Wouldn't that make her a
Entertainment
lot of
passed
money?
on to her. Memories of this past life that she had long left behind. Looking at the blueprints, the contracts, the memos, she felt old wounds begin to reopen. The regrets of a happy family that had been torn away from her. William had always been brilliant. That's what had attracted her to him in the first place. But he'd also been too blinded by obsession.
My OC, do not steal.
Too unable to actually
Wild.
see a bigger picture. But now, holding the paperwork that contained decades of heartbreak and trauma, she realized it was her turn. She was holding the power. This was her chance. And one thought resonated in her head. I will put them back together.
Oh, for
I will put
fuck's
them
sake.
all back together. She would be the one to rebuild this family. To rebuild the pieces of that shattered life. To reclaim the kids that Fazbear had stolen from her. But how? Looking at William's work now laid out before her, she knew that he had been onto something. Collecting remnant, robotic humanoids, digital conscience transference. The pieces were all in place. They were just scattered, fragmented. It was almost like there were too many ideas going in too many different directions. It was such an important idea that she reiterated that point to herself. There were too many ideas going in too many different directions. That said, there had to be a way to save it all. She just needed to put it all back together. But how? To rebuild her family, she would first need to rebuild the franchise that had stolen them away from her.
This is
With
the first
ownership
time
of
I
the characters,
okay.
their
We're
licenses,
pausing there. This is genuinely the first time I hear that she was behind the rebuilding of basically the corporate entity that is FNaF, which led to the Pizzaplex being built. This is the first time I actually hear about
technology patents in the Fazbear name, she converted the corporation back to an LLC, a structure for smaller businesses that are usually family-owned. The irony was fitting. From there, she would need Remnant, and lots of it. Remnant was the key. Clearly, in the later years of his life, William had been using Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals as a remnant farm, sending robots to kids' birthday parties in the hopes of nabbing bits of the stuff here and there. But clearly, it wasn't enough. He had, what, like 4, maybe 5 animatronics going out every week? No. It was a decent idea, but to get the
Alter Ego here. I have to go warm up with the folks. Hey, Eagly.
Dozens,
Welcome back.
hundreds of animatronics.
She's smart. She refined it. But does it make sense for her to do? That's the thing. Does it make sense for her to do it? Because that's the thing. I wouldn't think it would make sense for her. She's either completely out of the picture or she was also a victim of William. That's what I like to think. This whole part doesn't. This whole part's new to me. That's kind of like I'm still trying to sort of process it.
Help, something William would never ask for. William had kept everything in-house. His obsession with control limited him. Clara, though, she wasn't nearly that precious. A plan like this required partners, people outside of Fazbear to do the heavy lifting. So she contacted a mid-sized delivery company, DLZ Shipping Solutions, to help build replicas of all the original animatronics. And with meal delivery apps being all the rage, why not an animatronic delivery service? Order one to celebrate your birthday, your Halloween party. How about a
By the way, if you didn't know, FNaF AR is actually canon. It is canon.
4th of July picnic. We'll invite Liberty Chica and 4th of July Freddy on over.
Hey,
She would make sure that they made skins for every occasion. Chocolate Bonnies for Easter, Shamrock Freddies for St. Patrick's Day, Dia de los Muertos Chicas. And thus, the Fazbear Funtime service was born.
That's right. With the Fazbear Funtime
There's no fucking way. I've never.
always have someone watching your back.
Was it ridiculous? Absolutely. Was it a sellout? No doubt. It was exactly the sort of thing that William would have hated, but it needed to be done to get enough Remnant. Normally, the novelty of ordering an animatronic wore off after like, what, 1, maybe 2 times? But with new skins for new holidays, suddenly you had yourself an animatronic perfect for every occasion. It would keep people hooked. It would keep them ordering the latest and greatest that Fazbear Entertainment LLC had to offer. And all the while, they'd be collecting and returning the Remnant back to her. In a word, it was brilliant. There was just one problem with it. No one trusted the Fazbear name. The company's brand was still mud in the public eye. No one would want to hire animatronics from the restaurant franchise known for murdering children.
For murders, yeah, exactly.
Party quite like the threat of death, you know. So she needed to find a way to discredit the stories that had come before. She needed to win back the public's affections, reactivate some nostalgia for the spooky stories of their childhoods. She needed a game.
They got the Fazbear Pass? Yeah, they got the Fazbear Pass.
They lied to all of us. They told us that the whole point of this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue indie game developer. But that's not true at all. Those indie games were designed to conceal and make light of what happened. This isn't just an attempt to rebrand.
I like how this implies that the games that Scott designed are actually canon in universe. They're canon in universe because it's, again, they're considered indie games, and they're point and click indie games, and they're again, I can't believe they did that. They made Scott a fucking canon character in FNaF. Again, they made him a canon character. They had him. They basically made him play himself in his own universe. Had him design games that were quote unquote meant to be, meant to make light of whatever happened.
An elaborate cover-up.
And mom for Kate William had Ballora made her image, Sputter left, and she most likely lacked money, so she couldn't.
Opus between shifts at the Dollar General. So she found one. Steve just picked him out of obscurity. The right mix of desperate and doofus, willing to say and do anything.
Scott. That's just Scott.
He fell right in line, as expected, delivering stupid little things with dumb generic names like Mangle's Quest, Balloon Boy's Air Adventure, Five Nights at Freddy's. Bad gameplay with even worse graphics, but hey, they got the job done. People were suddenly talking about the clues inside of these things, searching for the hidden lore. They were actively making jokes about dead kids at pizzerias. Her husband's twisted history of serial murder had suddenly been reduced to a mere Nancy Drew mystery to be solved. The plan had worked. Freddy Fazbear's was suddenly more popular than ever.
That's fucking wild.
Shockingly well.
I like that. I like that. I like how stupid this is.
Complete. Suddenly infused with cash, she built the largest, most ambitious project
yet.
Mega
Pizzaplex.
Yes! Been so visionary, but always thought so small scale. He was careful to a fault. Not her, though. She knew that this latest project needed to be big. It needed to be flashy. It needed to be a palace for children. A place that got people talking talking and checking out.
I fucking go there. Fuck yeah.
So with a steady supply of remnant flowing in, it was finally time. The stage was set. It was time to get to her real goal, literally rebuilding.
Now the real question is, where was she getting this remnant from? Was she killing people in the process?
A family. March 2035. The first was obvious. The crying child, her little boy, the one that was the first to get ripped away from her. She had seen down in his bunker that William had gotten very close to replicating artificial humans using animatronic technology. And so that's exactly what she would do. Rebuild her boy from the ground up using robotic parts. His shaggy brown hair, his favorite striped shirt, even down to small details that no one would notice, like the band-aid on his left knee. William's research had even found ways of making animatronics that could bleed and process
divorce that
food,
couldn't
making
keep
them
her kids,
virtually
but filled with guilt. She wanted time back to one of her kids,
indistinguishable
showing like a
from
parent.
He would never have any idea of what he actually was unless he was explicitly told. The only things that could possibly ruin the illusion were any overrides to his internal systems. If something were to, say, interfere with the cameras that he had in his eyes, or cause some sort of a core reboot to his hard drive, or x-ray his metallic bones, then yeah, he would be exposed. But otherwise, to the outside world, he was just your typical, normal human boy. She worked down in the bowels of the Pizzaplex, giving him life, but it was one thing to build him, it was another to help him remember his identity. He died so young, so early in their history that there was no preserved memories.
Man, don't tell me
no
this is Gregory.
documentation that she could just download into his digital brain. So bit by bit, she trained him, forcing him to remember who he was. In a corner of the room, she even made a makeshift dinner table, a reminder of their happier days. The family recreated.
Don't tell me he's gonna see it's Gregory.
The father and the mother at the head of the table. The one in charge. The one in command. The one bringing all of this to fruition. But this progress was admittedly slower than she would have liked. At first, he could only communicate through simple ones and zeros, then rudimentary drawings and crude letters.
Nah, I'm gonna have to disagree with this one. That's a theory. Gregory is a homeless kid.
Images of his past life started to come through. Balloons, colors, houses, bears and faces, birthday parties. All for me. Gregory was alive. As the robot boy embraced her, she felt a warmth that she...
Pause. No. Absolutely no. I'm going to say this Gregory is a homeless child. This doesn't hold up whatsoever at all. It doesn't. I don't like this theory at all. I'm sorry.
This was the
I am going to have to politely.
This was what it was all for.
Politely disagree.
Back in her arms again. The plan was working. She had to keep going. Next was William. If the family was truly going to be put together, she would need him. And she knew exactly where he was. In the ruins of that old Freddy Fazbear's pizza place where Henry had trapped him. In fact, that's specifically why she insisted on building the Pizzaplex there over the sinkhole. It was the best place to hide what her true intentions were with the entire operation.
But
digging through the wreckage, she found him. He was right where she thought he'd be. Seeing the putrid shell of the Springtrap suit, though, was not something she was
playing against the Z-Fighters, you're wrong!
William Afton was disgusting. Scorched flesh fused into the fur lining. Hollow black sockets where eyes once were. A smell that reeked of burned carbon and bloody iron. He was no longer flesh. It was just the tangled sinews of a creature that was once called human. How far this brilliant man had
I
fallen.
really
It was
am.
clear that her work
I think
was
this one's
proud
just a stretch.
Afton was
Even with her
practically
just starting the whole
lifeless.
thing, that's
Man
an
may not have been
entire
able to die,
stretch.
But it was about as close as you could come. And his body would need a lot of reconstruction. Replacement arms and endoskeleton reinforcements were the top priority. Maybe pulled from their new line of glam rock animatronics. She'd have to see if they had any spare Bonnie parts lying around that they could steal. In the meantime, though, she threw the husk that was once her husband into a life support pod infused with aerosolized remnant to help keep him stable. But more important than recovering his body was recovering his mind. In his current state, he was comatose, an empty shell. Severe brain damage starts at temperatures over 108 degrees Fahrenheit. 42 degrees Celsius. And years of repeated fires had burned his brain to goo. Gone was the brilliant, frustrating mind that had drawn her to him in the first place. But she had a plan. Unlike her darling boy Gregory, Afton had found ways to record his consciousness. Fundamentally, the brain is only a series of electrical connections after all, so why couldn't you replicate that in the form of a standard circuit board? In essence, you could create a digital consciousness. And one thing she knew about
Fortnite
William
Battle
was nothing
Pass.
if not cautious. A planner. Someone who had backup plans to his backup plans. And sure enough, there it was, buried in piles of old animatronic CPUs, a record of Afton himself. But she needed
How would
someone
you
to
know?
Someone was definitely here during the night. It had to have been the client. I mean, they sent us that stuff in the first place with no explanation, told us to scan it, said it would expedite the process so we wouldn't need to program any pathfinding ourselves.
Unlike the other games that she claimed to have made in the past, this one had a different purpose. This wasn't about PR, it was about getting William back up and running, spreading his virus to the masses.
You acknowledge that Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for accidental digital consciousness transference, real-world manifestations of digital characters.
She hired a new developer, Silver Parasol Games, to scan the boards and bring her husband into the system. And because of the immersive nature of VR, William's consciousness would be able to merge with the player, giving him a new body, a new agency. There was just one...
But why would her... Oh... Matt Pat, please, my guy. You're killing me. You are killing me.
Wasn't as powerful as she had hoped. He wasn't able to gain complete control. The first trial run, Jeremy, was so desperate to escape from his grasp,
he cut his own face
off with a paper shredder. Messy. Afton's followers were reluctant to
I remember that.
It was the second attempt that looked like it had the potential to kill two birds with one stone. Enter Vanessa. Mrs. Afton wanted a surrogate daughter. Her darling Elizabeth would have been a young woman at this point if she had lived. And Clara wanted someone who wasn't Elizabeth but could be just like her. Could she have just rebuilt her like Gregory? Sure, but she decided against it because she wanted an actual human mother-daughter connection. Well, that, and it would be redundant and narratively unsatisfying to have two robot kids in the same family. What could she say? William had put a lot of tools on the table for her to use, and she was planning on using them all. Plus, Elizabeth had always been so loyal to Daddy. It was time to give her a second chance, a true choice. And Vanessa seemed to be the perfect candidate to fill the role.
Your dad's name was Bill. Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum...
Yeah, okay, this is Vanessa's lore.
He manipulated you.
Yeah, this is Vanessa's lore.
Your mum, after she lost the custody case. I was supposed to be a good girl.
She started as a QA tester at Silver Parasol Games, a VR game development company that was part of her plan to bring back William. But more importantly, Vanessa checked all the correct boxes. Right age, blonde, green eyes with a fondness for flowers and the outdoors. In many ways, it was her daughter all over again.
But
Except
why is
just
it...
looks and personality. What really mattered was Vanessa's mind. Underconfident, coming from a broken home, motherless, able to be manipulated. Yes, she would.
I mean, it makes sense, but there's an entire storyline to...
Just as the real Elizabeth.
Five Nights at Freddy's should have ended with Ultimate Custom Night, and I will not hear otherwise. This theory, I am struggling to make any sense out of it. Okay, it's a theory. I'm disagreeing. I'm not gonna pillage against this guy. But hell no. I'm just watching it.
Afton's code into a series of tapes hidden across the game, trying to do web searches to regain control over her life, but it wasn't enough. She was weaker than Jeremy. She was a thrall that, despite occasional moments of lucidity, had to obey. And with Vanessa, it was
that's at least
a daughter back, while also
that's at least established in the main games. At least it makes sense.
She just had to make sure that Vanessa was headed the right way. The reborn Gregory was an expert hacker, part of the benefits of being an Afton and a robot. So Clara had him keeping tabs on Vanessa, hacking into her emails and trailing her therapy sessions to ensure the future Elizabeth was falling in line. If any of the therapists started to ask too many questions, they were promptly dismissed from their positions.
Yeah.
And while Gregory kept tabs on Vanessa.
So if you guys don't know, if they got any close to figuring out the truth, the FNaF AR service that was established prior would have animatronics sent to with the sole purpose of getting these therapists silenced. That's why Vanessa in the tapes, if you haven't heard the tapes, has a therapist multiple different therapists, and it is mentioned, I think in one of them, that at some point, like one of them starts getting weirdly suspicious about why her therapists keep changing. That part at least makes sense. Everything else in this theory, after the Afton saga, no.
personal life, Mrs. Afton made sure to clear a path for her professionally. With Silver Parasol's collapse at the hands of the Anomaly, she then had the possessed Vanessa bring the contaminated circuit boards to DLZ Shipping, the Fazbear Funtime service. More glitches, more Remnant, more Afton. But it was her last move that was the best. In a true masterpiece of poetry, she brought Vanessa over to be Chief Security Officer at the Pizzaplex. A true family tradition to don the hat and badge, and all it took was a recommendation from the top as well as some emails marked for deletion. Sure, Vanessa didn't have relevant experience for the job, but when it comes directly from the CEO, does it really matter? Husband, son, daughter. A corpse, a robot, a human. All that was left was Michael. Poor, troubled Michael. The boy that killed her youngest. The one that would spend years trying to make his guilty conscience right again. A self-professed protector. While she knew she needed him to complete the family, something told her that the problem had already solved itself. Something had shifted when using Glamrock Freddy to excavate the buried pizza place.
I have been here before. I found myself for the first time.
Yeah, that's in the game.
I have changed. My friends are here, but I can protect you.
Now, this is the valid theory. This is the only valid theory I will... Ow! Fuck! Oh, my knee! We're having difficulties, chat. I just hit myself. Son of a bitch. Ahem! Okay. This is where a valid theory comes into play. Where the spirit of Michael Afton did not carry on, became restless, and eventually possessed Glamrock Freddy. I like this theory. I personally like this theory. It makes sense because Michael wanted to right the wrongs of his father. He didn't want revenge against his father. That was only a part of it. He wanted to properly right his wrongs and to make sure nobody else fell victim to his work. And while in Security Breach, it is not directly William's programming is what ended up possessing Vanessa into Vanny. It makes sense that Glamrock Freddy was eventually possessed by a restless Michael Afton who refused to move on with the restless spirits. Now that could be a stretch, but I like that theory. That's the theory I've been going with.
Maybe it was the remnant that had coursed through Michael's veins. Maybe it was
I'm confused. The Mimic is separate from this entire thing? Yeah, the Mimic isn't a ruin. So, here's why this theory doesn't really work. It's because I've seen another video, okay? And I've seen other theories circle around the internet. The Mimic and its source code was what was used to have these animatronics be as advanced as they were. Because the thing about the Mimic is the Mimic was programmed, as in the name, it was programmed to mimic. It was meant to be the ultimate animatronic, an ultimate learning machine. But to have this entire bit that's going on and then disregard the Mimic, because like you said, he's been in the books, he's been there from the start, it makes absolutely no sense. So the theory I have seen is that the Mimic is, sure, they recovered the source code for Spring Bonnie or Spring Trap, and that's how the Afton virus comes to be. But the fact that the Mimic was at the Pizzaplex as well, and they were using its source code and learning computer to essentially advance in this new animatronic tech. They got this proved by the new game. I haven't seen it.
She'd done it. Sure, there were still
I haven't seen anything in the new game.
Some final brainwashing of Vanessa, some rehabilitation of William, but they were there. Finally, all together again.
Hey Bryson, welcome to stream.
Roof, the Aftons reunited. A happy ending. And that's how it could have ended. That's how it should have ended, had it not been for a few unanticipated developments.
What do we got here?
For one, something was just wrong with the Pizzaplex. Almost as if the entire building was haunted, possessed. Puppet plushies hiding on ceilings, behind crates, places.
This is what I was saying, okay? Earlier, when I was talking about the embodiment of death in this universe, that I mentioned the Nightmarion. The Nightmarion, along with Nightmare, are what I want to consider the same entity taking different forms. Death comes to us in different shapes and forms. How am I doing? I'm doing fine. We're just vibing here, discussing and reacting to the FNaF lore. As you can see here, the video that we're reacting to is down at the bottom end of the screen. But you can also check the description for this video and the original creator of this video, because this video is not on the original channel. This is a bunch of videos pieced up together. So again, feel free to support these guys. But where was I? Oh, yes. So again, so the Nightmarion being there essentially implies that this place and this franchise is plagued by death. That's why the puppet, the puppets, exactly, the Nightmarion. It's the nightmare puppet. But again, they are meant to be the embodiments of death. And I want to say it's the same embodiment, but I'm assuming it takes the form of the puppet simply because it's meant to be it's basically an inverse puppet. If you remember correctly, the actual marionette gives life. So why wouldn't the embodiment of death, the Nightmarion, be the one to take it? You know what I'm saying?
No earthly way of belonging. Staff bots with greasy tears down their eyes, acting like they were being puppeteered by some sort of a nightmare. Even their sounds had the echo of nightmares long past. It was as though a guardian...
I wouldn't say it's the actual puppet. I want to say the puppet moved on when everything burnt down in FNaF 6. This is an entity that I will basically only call the embodiment of death, basically following the character around, because all Fazbear is, anything Fazbear related in universe, all it is and all it invites is death. It invites destruction, and death itself, that's exactly what it is. It takes, it doesn't give. That's my view on this.
Spirit of the past refused to move on. As long as her husband was around, it too
I feel like she would
linger.
return as well, to be honest.
It wasn't just in one body, but it was...
So, okay, Harp, so I'd have to know why, though. Like, what would make the puppet herself return? Because here's the thing. Here's what I like to think about the puppet. In FNaF 3, she's able to help the original four move on. You know? She could be stuck in the blob. I mean, there was a puppet mask in the blob, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure that's just that's different. That's new remnant. But who knows? But the reason why I want to say she moved on was because she found her peace. She found her father, and she, in her eyes, witnessed William burn so that he could no longer hurt anyone else. So I want to assume Charlie / the puppet found her peace and had no reason to be persistent. The only one I could genuinely see returning would be Cassidy. There's no indication of her coming back, but again, I want to imagine that there is an embodiment of death amongst the FNaF universe. Now, is there a specific character that died that could embody this death? No, I cannot give you that. But there is someone, and again, death itself, the very concept of death itself, taking the form of the opposite of the being that gave life in order to, in order to basically, I mean, you can say it sort of makes sense, but at the same time, in order to, I guess in a sense, insult the being of life now that it's gone, because death never truly leaves us. Life does. God, that got really deep.
In the essence
Guess
of
what?
the
You got a
building
FNaF
itself.
toy?
She had
Hey,
seen
it's
stories
nice.
of houses built on burial grounds getting possessed by angry spirits, but she'd never assumed that it could be real. Then again, in a
The
world
blob
of
is
living
stuck massive
spirit
also, so they
metal and
can't move on to
mind-controlling
William
witches,
does.
Who was she to be so judgmental? The whole thing was ridiculous.
Fair
Why
enough.
would this be the line that she refused to cross? After all, the Pizzaplex was built over the burial ground of angry spirits, but it was the power cords that finally convinced her that something was wrong. Suddenly, these cords were striped black and white, like the security puppet from generations ago. The very foundations of this place, the materials and wires that constituted it, were rebelling against her, against the Aftons, against the quest to bring them all together again. And it was being helped by something else, something slithering through the building. Maybe they were connected, she couldn't be sure, but a blob of living wires could be heard oozing through the walls, stealing pieces and parts of the old animatronics showcased in Rockstar Row. She could only assume that it was a byproduct of all the remnant they'd been collecting. From
Yeah, that one
Afton's
makes
testing,
sense.
she knew that both
Yeah, that
light
makes sense.
and dark remnant existed, one of positive emotions and the other created from anguish, anger, agony. Perhaps this thing was an amalgamation of all the darkest parts of the pizzeria's history, a collection
Makes
of the
sense.
hatred still housed inside these defunct endoskeletons and exosuits.
Yeah, no,
as
that
long
makes
as it was
sense.
left alone, it seemed to be harmless. But if any Afton outside of Michael got too close, it would lash out wildly. Even young Gregory, looking to punish the family that had been complicit in its horrible creation. Little did she know, though, that Gregory should have been her biggest concern, that bringing the family together would have some unforeseen consequences. Gregory
Again-
was normally the goodest of boys. She had
Again, I don't
literally
like
built
that
him
Gregory's a
up.
robot.
But lately,
That makes no
they've been
sense.
disappearing more and more often, disobeying her orders. requests. She knew that he loved playing on the arcade machines once the Pizzaplex closed, being so good as to top the leaderboard on practically all of them. But lately, he was nowhere to be found. She suspected his absence had to do with Glamrock Freddy's failed performance the other night, when he malfunctioned live on stage, almost as though the core programming of Freddy responded to seeing this rebuilt small boy. Almost like it awakened something inside of him. She'd have to make sure that Vanessa was on the lookout.
I'm pretty sure it was confirmed that this was the Afton virus taking over and Freddy essentially trying to override it by going into a quote-unquote safe mode. I'm pretty sure that was what the general consensus
soon come
was.
to learn that Vanessa wasn't enough. Whether it was the influence of the nightmare puppet or a reawakened hatred of animatronics seated deep in Gregory's code, something had caused him to rebel, to rip apart each animatronic in the Pizzaplex. Bit by bit, this boy was tearing down the empire that she'd so painstakingly built, freeing Vanessa from her mind control, destroying the remains of Afton in the basement, setting Glamrock Freddy loose as her...
Yeah, no, this entire thing is disproven because the Burn Trap boss fight was, or that entire part of Security Breach was proven to not be canon. Security, the Pizzaplex is burnt down. Okay, that does burn down. But the Afton part of Security Breach was stated to not be canon. What's this about? What this is about? This is supposed to be a theory video.
Carefully created world.
We're reacting to it. It's a reaction video. It's a reaction stream.
One more time, she began to plot her revenge. She would have to bring them all to ruin. And there you have it, my friends. Nearly a decade in the making, my FNaF timeline for where the franchise is here in 2023. The year of Fazbear Frights, by the way. As always, it wouldn't be right for me to finish without going over some of the more controversial takes that I just handed out. I think we can all agree that this part of the timeline was always going to be the hardest. So let me just break down some major points. First of all, the biggest swing, and obviously the one that everything else rests upon, Mrs. Afton being the CEO of Fazbear
that one's bullshit.
Entertainment LLC. Here's why I went with this route. Now, first and foremost, the head of Fazbear Entertainment is the single biggest mystery that we're meant to solve at this point in the lore. The Ultimate Guide brings it up repeatedly. Who's running the show? Who is okaying these decisions? And in the Security Breach memos, we get multiple mentions of someone manipulating things from the top down. Whoever this is, they are the person driving forward every other facet of the
But why does it have to be an Afton?
They're the puppet master who's hiring the indie dev. They're the ones
But why does it have to be Mrs. Afton? Again, I've seen multiple theories state that Mrs. Afton was killed by William. And then Ballora was created in her image. I don't like that theory, but at least it sort of makes sense. This one is a curveball.
Launching the brand, building the Pizzaplex over the burial ground. So everything at the end of the timeline relies on this one singular answer. Now, as I see it, there are two possibilities here. One, an adult robot Elizabeth, like we see older versions of robot kids in the fourth closet, or Mrs. Afton. Could it be someone completely new to the franchise? Absolutely yes, but
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
Faces and repeated themes, it would be
she's the one to make the Fazbear Pass.
So, between these two girl bosses, who then would it be? Well, Elizabeth always wants to please her daddy, so she'd be most likely wanting to bring him to life.
But then
what's Vanessa's role?
Yeah, exactly. That wouldn't
Vanessa
make any
is
sense.
Clearly meant to be a parallel for Elizabeth. Same hair, same eyes, similar backstories. But if the main goal is getting the Afton family back together, which seems to clearly be the case in Security Breach, then there's no need.
But that's the thing. You trying to like that. I feel like that's sort of a loss in translation. That one doesn't make sense to me.
Need for Vanessa to be involved at all. We already have Elizabeth running the show. It would also mean that we suddenly have two robot kids running around. Which
have you seen the? Yeah, I've seen the trailer for the movie.
Kind of dumb. Now look at Mrs. Afton. We know next to nothing about her outside of any clues that we can get from Immortal and the Restless and Ballora's song. But what her being head of Fazbear does is make every other piece of the lore fit.
Not to me.
We have one of every other type of character. One robot kid in Gregory, one brainwashed human in Elizabeth.
Gregory isn't a robot.
One OG corpse in William, and one possessed.
That canon. That ending was proven to be canon or non-canon.
Cleaner. Legally, it's also the option that makes the most sense. As I call out in my narrative.
Yeah, legally it makes sense. Legally it makes sense, but again, here is my counterpoint. William, again, multiple people have theories that William kills her, or she is just flat out gone. But she is barely mentioned, and again, you could say that this is what I've been saying about Mystery, where the whole thing is trying to be kept under wraps so we can keep theorizing. But I'm going to honestly have to discredit MatPat in this because this one's not a good one. This one, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is not a good
company
one.
and all of its assets. So as Fazbear folds as a company, I'd suspect a lot of it would return back to her. But there was one clue that really sold me on this particular direction, and that was this right here, in the Post-it room. The big lore central of Security Breach, a dinner table scene with the whole family, including the mother. And not only is she there, she is at the head of that table, the position of highest honor.
Now that's
and
a good
responsibility.
point,
She
but
is the one in charge.
again,
with
it
William
doesn't make
being
sense to
relegated
me.
off to the side. That one scene shows that we have to include Mom in there somewhere, and the only place it makes sense for her to be is at the top. Now,
For me, it doesn't.
One big
Nope.
dilemma with my interpretation of all this. The Ultimate Guide really seems to point out that the head of Fazbear doesn't want the glitch trap virus to spread. They call it one particular email in FNaF AR where the legal team calls a cease and desist to all action about scanning the circuit boards. And even in FNaF VR, we're told that the circuit boards get stolen back by the client, presumably once they realize what danger is on there, trying to stop glitch trap before he spreads.
Exactly, like this theory doesn't make
Here's the problem
sense.
with that though, if the head of Fazbear doesn't want Afton to rise again, why'd they restart the company in the first place? Why'd they build over the FNaF 6 pizzeria? Why'd they go through an elaborate cover-up to make the possessed Vanessa an important part of the company? Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would be the most inconsistent series of actions ever, but I did want to call attention to it since it seems to be the route that the official guide is trying to steer us towards. Moving on to minor point number 1, the Five Nights at Freddy's games were made by the Rogue indie developer.
This is what I'm thinking, okay? This is what I had said, that the Five Nights at Freddy's games are in-universe canon by a Rogue indie dev. Now, we need to see where he goes at with this, but...
Here's the thing, FNaF VR opens with this line.
That's why we have recreated many of these completely fictitious scenarios, lies, that you've been fed over the last several years into a hilarious VR game.
It's recreating the lies told to you by the indie developer. And
Yeah.
since Help Wanted has direct recreations of FNAFs 1 through 3, it means the games must be part of the fabrications that this developer made up.
Yeah.
Also, all of this is heavily implied in the story of the same name, Help Wanted and Tales of the Pizzaplex, hence FNAF 1 through 3 canon games within the lore of the series.
Yeah, it
Big
makes sense.
swing number 2, the elephant, or ghost in the room, Charlie infecting the Pizzaplex. John from the channel FNAF has made some great findings about Charlie's influence over the Pizzaplex.
Okay,
The
I
cables
need to
that
hear
look
this
like
one.
the striped arms of the puppet, the Nightmare Own plushies that you find hidden across the Pizzaplex in weird
But
places.
the question is, why would Charlie basically give herself the visage of the embodiment of death in the series when she was known to give life? That basically kills any character development for her. It's a character deconstruction, and it makes no sense.
The staff bots with creepy smiles and in your dreams written on the front, all of these things scream puppets. Plus, with the puppet mask not having tears in the blob, seems to imply that Charlie's spirit exists elsewhere. She is still in play, and she has an important role, especially in Gregory's Post-it room. The doors to the Post-it room in the game's code are called Charlie doors, and inside we see a bunch of lit up nightmare staff bot heads. Suspicious, to say the least. The channel ID's Fantasy did a great theory looking at the Post-it notes, concluding that the crying child / Gregory isn't alone
She'd been
in this
taken away
room,
from her
but rather
peace. She
might
would
be
be angry.
communicating with someone. A spirit, Charlie. Charlie's spirit seems to have pulled a poltergeist. Instead of controlling one thing, she's affecting a lot of little details, foundational elements of the Pizzaplex. And this isn't the first time that we've seen this in the franchise either. We've seen spirits communicating with people through physical writing in the survival logbook. So we know that this is an established means of spirit communication within this franchise. And I suspect that to some extent it might be Charlie's influence making Gregory go haywire.
I guess
Which
that
brings
sorta
me
makes
then
sense.
to my final and probably biggest controversy in recent FNAF history, Gregory as Patient 46, the evil robot mastermind. Now, I know when I first came out with this theory a year ago, people were mad. But here's the thing, you don't have to take my evidence points for it anymore. The recent Tales from the Pizzaplex story, GGY, basically goes and just outright proves it. In GGY, we find out about a boy named Gregory who's getting all the high scores in the Pizzaplex arcade machine.
Yeah.
When therapists start to go missing, it's confirmed that GGY is the one that's working to bump them off. And when animatronics start getting corrupted by a mysterious glitch, GGY's letters are found inside the code. He even chooses the code name Dr. Rabbit, for crying out loud. But obviously, by the time of Security Breach, Gregory is working against Burn Trap, Vanessa, and the animatronics.
What,
Why?
Burn Trap
How?
is-
Well, it's not really clear. I tend to believe that something must have happened to cause him to either...
But here's the thing, he's taking Burn Trap's ending into account as if it were canon. It's not canon.
Lose his memory or be reset in some way. Maybe it was Charlie talking to him in his post-it room. Maybe he hit his head. Maybe it was the connection that he made with Mike on stage in Glamrock Freddy. Not exactly sure, and I don't think we have enough clues to solve any of it yet. But it makes sense from a story perspective why he'd start off evil on Afton's side and then switch to trying to destroy him and not knowing who he is in Security Breach. And with that, my friends, I'm wrapping this thing up. Congratulations, we are on page 40.
Again, the Security Breach portion makes no sense to me.
Just wrote
I'm sorry.
myself a Tales of the Pizzaplex short story. Have I answered everything?
No.
Does everything fit cleanly?
Absolutely
No.
not, because that's how this lore works.
And most cohesive narrative for all these characters that addresses most
Up until Security Breach.
of the evidence we're given? Yeah. For me, honestly, it really does.
For
So let's
him,
be
at
honest
least.
with
For me,
ourselves,
it
the DLC
doesn't
will probably
fit
come out
very
later
well.
This year and prove me completely wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. Then comes the movie, whatever. My descent into
The
madness
movie is
continues.
not
And
canon
with that,
to
my
the
friends,
storyline.
We can finally rest.
So-
we can leave the demon to its demons with one final reminder that it was all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so
Alright, hey everybody, my name's P-Man.
okay, so we're gonna stop things here. Okay, go to chill corner. Give me my music. Give me my music, please. Okay, guys. So we're doing a final bit of discussion here. The main issue I really have with this video is just, for starters, it's a good video. I'm not gonna pretend it sucks, right? It was a really good, well-constructed video. Everything with the Security Breach makes, yeah, exactly. The thing about Security Breach is that it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because there's some, it's so vague, it's so weird, you know. So the thing about Security Breach is why like everything is too vague to the point where we're making outlandish theories, like Gregory being a robot, all this jazz. But the real question is like how does it all fit tie into Mrs. Afton? You know, again, I'm not gonna pretend like this is a bad video. It's a good video. It's well constructed. Let's be real. Here we don't have we don't have everything at all. I'm pretty sure we already moved on from the Security Breach storyline, anyways. But what's the word? But like I said, from FNaF 1 all the way to UCN, it made sense. Like when the way he constructed the games and took the theories. Seriously has more connections, a lot more. Trust. Yeah, no, definitely. And the thing about this series is that, again, it's still very shrouded in mystery. We don't understand most of this stuff, so we have yet to really just look into it and figure more things out the more we go. Obviously, there's still Secrets of the Mimic. That way, that ties in a little more to the story. And Security Breach Ruin, which he unfortunately didn't go over. But what's the word? But maybe I'll look into it a little more. But if you want more reaction stuff like this, guys, let me know. I'll probably react and basically commentate over the COD Zombies lore, because I'm well versed in that one. But okay, to those that got here late, ladies and gentlemen, I have a sort of schedule for the streams from Monday through Thursday. Take my leave, it's late, it's like 11:30. Night Mistake, remember, it's a theory, a game theory. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for stopping by. You have a good night. Get some rest, my guy, and I'll see you hopefully tomorrow, because I am streaming tomorrow. So, as I was saying to those that are here, if you are wondering what games I will be streaming, Monday and Tuesday are set. Monday is going to be a very long stream, kind of like today, but we're going to be playing Call of Duty Black Ops 6 Zombies and beating all of the bosses that are, or trying to beat all the bosses that are currently there, available, up until the Z-Rex, right before the Reckoning releases. So, we have one more map. We'll be doing this stream with all the bosses up to the Z-Rex, and then we'll be doing one more BO6 stream whenever this one releases, and you know, stuff like that. I'll keep you guys posted on BO6. But Tuesday, it'll be Jetstream Sam's DLC for Metal Gear Rising. It should be a fun time. We love Metal Gear Rising, and Sam is cool, as much as I really don't like the guy no more. You know how it is. And finally, Wednesday, we are looking between Marvel Rivals and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I will let you guys know on Tuesday what I have decided. No Pokemon video this week either. We won't be doing that till next week. So, with that being said, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you guys for having this nice discussion and, you know, this theorizing with me. It was actually a very interesting stream, a very fun stream, and honestly, it didn't feel like 3 hours. It felt way shorter than that. So, before I rest, I would recommend to watch Walton Files. The Walton Files. Huh. Wonder what that is. I'd have to take your recommendation. I'd have to take a look at it. Walton file. It really depends, cause I mean I don't really want to be doing this type of stream a whole lot because I'm not a reaction streamer. I am a gaming streamer, but I will react to lore on games and stuff just for funsies, you know. But with that being said, you all, thank you guys for stopping by today. Y'all have a great rest of your day, a great start of your week. Stay mystic, and of course, I'll see you guys tomorrow when we take on Black Ops 6 Zombies and all of its Easter eggs. Peace out.
This is my cipher.